really picking up overnight across northern and westernmost parts of Scotland. Gusts of 60, maybe 70 miles an hour, perhaps even 75 miles an hour through the night in some exposed areas. Those strong winds bringing plenty of heavy showers, even the odd thunderstorm moving through. For England and Wales, we'll see these bands of showery rain working from west to east, kind of fizzling out as they do so, and clearer skies should follow for northern England, the Midlands and Wales before midnight. Plenty of showers packing in on those very gusty winds across northern Scotland. As I said, that yellow warning in place through the night and into Friday morning. Elsewhere, the clearer skies will develop. Not as cold as a couple of nights ago, but colder than the night just gone, with temperatures dropping to about 6 or 7 Celsius. As I said, that warning remains in place into Friday morning. Gusty conditions across northern and western Scotland. Further band of heavy showers coming in across England and Wales too. So some heavy rain for a time. A bit of sunshine either side of that. Still blustery, but the wind's easing down for many of us tomorrow compared to the rest of today. And still quite mild, double digits for large parts of the country.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can enjoy Christmas on us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB 17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Thursday, the 27th of November. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Dawn Neeson.
Well, it was a high-tax, high-spend, deep red budget.
These are my choices, the right choices for a fairer, a stronger and more secure Britain.
Yes, the Chancellor raises taxes by £26 billion, taking the burden to a record high, with workers, savers, businesses taking the hit. Well, basically everybody. Rachel Reeves told GB News that the budget's focus is on her priorities.
Cutting the cost of living, cutting NHS waiting lists and cutting debt and borrowing. And I achieved those things in my budget, my second budget as Chancellor of the Exchequer yesterday.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I've identified a way to save taxpayers huge amounts of money by sacking just one person, the woman sitting opposite.
Yes, the Conservative leader Kenny Badenoch went on the attack, calling Rachel Reeves the worst ever Chancellor in a barnstorming Commons takedown.
That smorgasbord of misery we just heard from her can be summed up in one sentence. Labour are hiking taxes to pay for welfare. This is a budget for Benefit Street, Madam Deputy Speaker, paid for by working people.
Some breaking news just coming into us. The second Okie small boat migrant has been returned to France from the UK.
Yes, he's one of 153 people who have been sent back across the English Channel to France.
And we must take all necessary measures to ensure the removal of any alien from any country who does not belong here or add benefit to our country. If they can't love our country, we don't want them.
Overnight, President Trump issued a statement from the White House after 2 National Guardsmen were shot in Washington, D.C. With the suspect gunman identified as an Afghan migrant, the president has since called for investigations into all Afghan nationals who entered the United States under the Biden administration.
And vive la conscription, I can't even say it. Yeah, France is planning to restore national military service in the face of the growing threat posed by Russia and the risk of a new conflict breaking out in Europe. So, should we do the same here?
And do women quietly shape men into better versions of themselves? Far more than we tend to admit. Well, a moment from Prince William's Welsh visit has reignited that age-old conversation.
Shut up.
Oh, it's all right for you.
I'm having. Right, hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon. It's the morning after the night before, and we're all rather fine, I think is the word. I hate the word fine. I'm actually having 2 men here mansplaining how to speak French to me. It's going terribly well so far.
Well, I just think you both can all laugh about conscription. Neither of you would be conscripted. I'm sitting here in the prime age category to be sent off to the front. So it's all right, you two laughing about it. I'm here about to...
What are you implying? That possibly we are slightly...
I think you both might be over the age of 35, is what I'm saying. Not by much.
No, definitely not by much.
And who says that quality control would conscript you? Anyway, regardless of your age.
Oh, I don't know. You should see how much I can benchmark, White.
I'd be more scared of Dawn on the front line than you, that's for sure.
Yes, that's enough about Christmas Day.
But this is a serious thing, isn't it? I mean, Rishi Sunak was talking about conscription at the last election.
Oh, yeah,
Now Emmanuel Macron's bringing it in France. It exists across many European countries. I mean, is this the way the world's heading now?
Well, we're going to be talking about it in more detail later. But I'm getting... Is that right? Is that right?
Oui, très bien.
OK, but we have to shut up now in any case, because GB News political editor Chris Hope has spoken to the Prime Minister earlier. So let's have a listen to what he had to say.
Prime Minister, the overwhelming majority of GB News viewers tell us they think they're worse off from the budget. What's your message to them now they feel you've ruined their Christmas?
Well, we have asked everybody to make a contribution to the necessary decisions and the fair decisions for our country. But what I can say to your viewers is that money is going to protect our NHS, which will be a huge concern of theirs, to make sure that when they and their families need it, I hope they don't over Christmas, but when they do, that it is protected for them. It's going into our schools to make sure every child can go as far as their talent will take them on. I know for your viewers that'll be really important. But also it's going into the measures that we're taking to drive down the cost of living. We've frozen rail fares, frozen prescription charges, and now, yesterday we announced £150 on average off all energy bills right across the country. For many of your viewers, that'll be welcome news because it's one of the bills they worry most about. If they're amongst the 6 million of the poorest families, that's on top of the 150 that we've already taken off. So they're the principles behind the decisions that we took.
But Prime Minister, you're raising taxes and giving the money from working people to those on benefits. How can that be right?
No, it's going to our NHS, it's going to our schools, and it's going on cost of living measures. But I won't apologise for the fact we are also lifting 500,000 children out of poverty. I don't want to live in a country where children pay the price in poverty, and 3/4 of the families in which children are living in poverty are working families. They're the working poor. The other thing I'd say, because we were in a hospital yesterday, is if you go to the NHS and ask them, they will say there's a direct link between child poverty and children coming into hospital. So we take the pressure off the NHS. So I'm not going to apologise for taking children out of poverty. It's desperately needed.
Prime Minister, if I can draw you on the migration figures out this morning, the figures show that numbers in asylum hotels up 13%. When are you going to get a grip on the soaring cost of illegal migration? And while I've got you on net migration, the figure's down to 204,000 for the 12 months to June 2025. But the OBR tell us that figure will go up again to 340,000 by the end of the decade. Why can't you control legal net migration?
Well, just let me tell net migration first, because under the last government we saw the Boris wave. He promised that immigration would come down, and it quadrupled to nearly 1 million. That was unprecedented. From that very high figure, it's now down to 200,000 or so, and that is a step in the right direction. Huge measures that we've taken to that end. On the question of asylum hotels, I want to close those hotels as quickly as possible. The last government didn't process tens of thousands of claims. They therefore put people into hotels, 400 hotels at the height under the last government, now down to about 200. But your challenge to me is the right one, which is that we need to get that number down. I'm determined to close all of our asylum hotels.
Minister Sir Keir Starmer, thank you for joining us today in a busy community centre here in Rugby. Thank you.
Well, that's fascinating, isn't it? Really fascinating, because it seems like...
I've got another word for it, to be honest with you, but you carry on.
I think we've returned to traditional politics.
What, lying?
The opposite.
Oh, right, OK. Just
Traditionally, what you'd have is the Conservatives saying spend less, tax less, and the Labour Party saying spend more, tax more. But during the election, the Labour Party pretended that it wasn't the old Labour Party.
Yeah.
It spent the entire election pretending that it was some new, moderate, middle-of-the-road, we're not going to tax you anymore, look, we're safe to vote for sort of party. And they have just reverted to type in government. I mean, I just wish they were more honest during the election. It's what they always do. They always spend more money and they always tax us more. Just why didn't they tell us before? They clearly wanted to do it all along. Just why didn't they tell us? Why weren't they honest?
Because there's one simple reason they didn't tell us. They weren't honest, because if they'd have been honest, they wouldn't have won the election.
That's
true. Not even, what's the phrase, rocket science, brain surgery. It's none of those things. It is just what they do. But you know what? And I'm not the only one. Freddie has just got in touch about what you've just heard the Prime Minister say, saying the money is not going to the NHS. Starmer's blatantly lying again. It's going to feed the welfare state. And Freddie, you've absolutely nailed it, mate. That is absolutely... The average earner will spend almost £2,000 of taxes now on the benefits bill. That's more than we are going to be spending on the welfare state. So it's a blatant lie. Sorry.
Well, shall we speak to someone who's thought in depth about all of this, the columnist and author Lord Daniel Finkelstein. Lord Finkelstein, thanks indeed for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you for having me on.
Just let's reflect first of all on what the Prime Minister was saying. It's almost strange. He sort of feels comfortable talking about defending the big spending choices that he's making. It's a very different Prime Minister to the one who was elected 15 months ago.
Yeah, look, I always joked that their manifesto at the election was Britain's completely broken, let's do nothing about it. They didn't really know what they wanted to do once they got elected, and you know, in 2010, the Conservative Party went into the general election saying, you know, we're going to do things like freeze public sector pay, and they paid a price for that. I think it was one of the reasons why they fell short of getting an overall majority. But it meant in 2015, people rewarded them by saying, well, look, you did roughly do what you said you were going to do. We're on a track now, we can understand. And I think people are, you know, justifiably reasonably annoyed that, and reasonably annoyed that the government said it wouldn't increase taxes on working people and has decided to do that. But it didn't have a mandate to reduce spending or to increase borrowing either. So it had to do one of those things.
Daniel, I mean, the question I have had constantly in my head now for 24 hours is, how can any of us ever trust anything this government ever says again?
Well, I do think that's a reasonable question to put to them. I do think that. And I'm resistant to it. So, you know, I don't think we've got any alternative but to having politicians and politics, because the alternative is a terrible way of governing. So I'm very defensive normally of politicians and the dilemmas that they have. I do think fighting a general election and winning a landslide majority, saying you weren't going to increase taxes on working people, and then resisting, by the way, as you'll remember, Rishi Sunak saying that they were going to have to increase taxes. They called Rishi Sunak a liar. And all along, it was always likely that they would have to reach for this once they got about 2 years in to the government. And although Keir Starmer's now making a fist of how he intended to do this, in reality, they've been forced to it by two things. The first is the bond markets will not allow them to borrow more money. And the second is that the Labour Party will not allow the government to reform the welfare system. Now, they've therefore got no choice, really. Once you've taken those two things out of the picture, you have to increase taxes. They've increased taxes in a way that falls just short of an explicit breach of the promise on rates of income tax, VAT and NICs. But it does break their manifesto promise not to increase tax on working people, which was just as explicit.
Now, a lot of us argued at the time of the general election that the Prime Minister had form on this, the now Prime Minister had form on this. I mean, when he stood to be elected as leader of the Labour Party, he lied. He blatantly lied to this selectorate of the Labour Party, saying that he would back mass nationalisations, huge taxes, free tuition fees, all of this stuff, and ditched all of those promises as soon as he got into power. Now, given that he had form on lying to the selectorate to become Labour leader, I certainly thought it wasn't unreasonable to suggest, well, he could be doing exactly the same swindle to the general electorate at the time of the last election. A lot of people said, no, look, this is the real Keir Starmer. He's a moderate guy. Sure, he lied to the left to get in, but now this is the real Keir Starmer. I mean, they were all wrong, weren't they?
Well, yes, they were. And I did try making that argument myself before the election. It's important to note that he hasn't actually gone back to the position of his leadership election either. So he's let down those people too. His position somewhere between the position he offered the general electorate and the position he offered the Labour Party. He has not returned to the full-out policy of nationalisation. And I notice on tuition fees, for example, the situation for students has got worse rather than better. So he hasn't even satisfied, I think, the kind of left aspirations behind this electorate in the Labour Party. But the thing that we all have to reflect on is how during the general election campaign we were all so focused, for understandable reasons, on the deficiencies of the Conservative Party that we didn't then focus ourselves enough on the fact that the Labour Party was advancing a policy that would inevitably mean they'd have to break one aspect of it, either the kind of thrust of their promises to revive public services and increase welfare spending, on the other, or they would have to increase taxation, and they've obviously tried one and now flopped towards the other. I don't think it's a genuine conversion of conviction, by the way. I think both of these are sort of what happens to suit the next 5 minutes.
Daniel, isn't the fact that they've got such a huge majority going to be the reason for their downfall? Because it's the backbenchers that have prevented them from making the changes that evidently Reeves and Starmer wanted to do. They can't do them, so they've flip-flopped and sort of told half-truths. So the fact that they've got a huge majority is going to bring these two down.
Yeah, it's certainly one of the things I think is that their majority is very wide, but it's not very deep, and that means that almost every MP is sitting on a marginal constituency, and that obviously puts certain pressures onto the party. But if you elect a Labour government, Labour's going to get in. That's what's going to happen. The really, really interesting thing now is whether this politics, which is now, as you noted, I think quite acutely, moved back to this debate between tax and spend, and tax less and spend less. Is that a framing that, how does that framing affect the battle on the right between Reform and the Conservative Party? Certainly, I thought yesterday in the Commons, Kemi Badenoch appeared much more comfortable. And, speaking as someone who wants a smaller state and who wants welfare reform, I was more comfortable having her reply to the budget than I would have been, say, Nigel Farage, for all of his other kind of quite good skills at communicating, which he definitely does have. And I wonder whether it will change the terms of trade as we change the issues from from the frontline issue always being immigration to the frontline issue now being tax and spend.
It almost seems like we've got a very traditional sort of three-way split now in politics. The Labour Party is trying to own public services. The Conservative Party is trying to own low tax and sensible management of the economy. And the Reform Party owns migration. And depending on which issue is at the sort of top of voters' minds, each party might rise and fall.
Salience is very important. But, look, the Conservative Party, and I'm sure some of your viewers will be thinking this, the Conservative Party obviously, had a spotty record on tax, partly because during that last government we had COVID, and, we've also spent a long time recovering from the bank collapse. So it's not been possible to drive down tax rates in the way that I think I know, because I spoke to him a fair deal about it. I know that Rishi Sunak thought was right. I think another interesting question raised by this budget is what it will ultimately mean for the government's policy on Europe. The government has made a decision effectively to endorse the European social model. It's introduced the Employment Rights Act, and it's introduced this tax and spend budget. Now we've got a situation where we're inside the European social model, but outside the economic institutions of the EU, not a policy that's really very coherent. And I've always wondered whether, as we got towards the back end of Keir Starmer's government or of a Labour government, they won't begin to think, I wonder whether we shouldn't revisit Brexit. Because my view is that the only economic policy that made sense if you were leaving the European Union was a low tax, low non-wage labour cost
I think
economy.
that makes a lot of sense. And I think if people on all sides of the argument accept this, I mean, what's the point in leaving the European Union if you're not then going to use your Brexit freedoms to make your economy more competitive? If you're going to make your economy less competitive outside of the EU, you've whacked yourself twice. Lord Finkelstein, thanks so much for joining us. I think that's a really fascinating question that we will return to as this Parliament goes on.
Yeah, OK. Joining us now is political editor for the HuffPost UK, Kevin Schofield. Kevin, good to see you. Kevin, what do you make of it all?
I mean, I thought, Dawn, that the most striking image of the day was when Rachel Reeves sat down and you saw all the Labour MPs behind her waving their order papers and roaring and being very appreciative. And I think that demonstrated really that this was a budget aimed at trying to keep the Parliamentary Labour Party on side and effectively keep Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer in a job. I mean, we know we've had a lot of speculation. I know from speaking to Labour MPs before the budget that they thought if it had gone badly, there could really be a move against Keir Starmer almost immediately. I think that danger is now abated because of this budget, and that they'll plod on now really until May, when the voters will have their say in Scotland, Wales and across England.
So, Kevin, basically what you're saying is they were putting their political careers before the public.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no doubt it was a lot of party management going on. I mean, I know from speaking to senior government figures over the last 15, 16 months since they won the election that lifting the two-child cap was not a priority for Number 10. It was one of those things, yeah, it would be quite nice if we had lots of money, then we would do it. But it was never, ever on the agenda, especially not after the welfare reforms collapsed again because of a backbench rebellion. I remember speaking to someone in Number 10 at that time saying, well, they can forget the two-child cap being scrapped now because they've just spent all that money because they won't let us cut welfare. So they didn't want to do it, but now they were up against it. Lots of Labour MPs very unhappy, and they still are unhappy, to be honest with you, but they're less unhappy than they were because they all wanted, or a large proportion of them wanted, the two-child cap to be lifted.
I'm old enough to remember when the Prime Minister complained about what he called sticking plaster politics, but it seems like he might have slapped a sticking plaster on his own career for now. Let's see if it holds until May.
Needs a bandage the way they're going at the moment. Kevin, thank you very much. Political editor for HuffPost there, Kevin Schofield. Let me know what you think of this one, won't you? gbnews.com/your say.
And there's a poll to have. Yes, friends of GB News can vote in today's You Decide poll by scanning the QR code that's on the screen now. It's just over there. The question is, was the Chancellor right to scrap the two-child benefit cap? The results so far are fairly overwhelming.
Stunned.
2% of you say yes, 98% of you say no.
Totally stunned. And in true Strictly style, that's what they do, isn't it? This is what you need to do. Scan that and have your say. Very important.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and there's plenty more still to come.
There is. Overnight, President Trump issued a statement from the White House as 2 National Guardsmen were shot in Washington, D.C. The suspected gunman is an Afghan migrant. But up next...
Net migration has fallen by nearly 80% from its peak in the wake of the pandemic. But the net figure hides a gross truth. More on that after the break.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel. We'll see you very soon.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
The new guidelines instruct visa officers to reject applicants who may be eligible for public benefits as part of the President's hardline crackdown on immigration, all to prevent people becoming dependent on those public benefits and draining the US resources.
So with an increasing obesity problem in the UK, should the UK follow Trump and ban visas for fat people?
Well, joining us now is the body positivity influencer and actor George Keywood and the former presenter of Fat Families, Steve Miller. Steve, I think I might know what you think about this one. Let's kick off with you.
Well, I think this is great. I think this is Trump using common sense. This is Trump putting his country first. And wouldn't that be a breath of fresh air if we had it in the UK? Of course, by encouraging people that are too fat and have already got medical conditions, serious medical conditions, coming into your country, what I'm saying is, it is a common sense factor because the likelihood is that they're going to cost your country a lot of money. And let's face it, the taxpayer is already under stress. The NHS is knackered. And do you know how much it costs per year to look after someone with diabetes? It costs up to £3,000 a year. So, no, we're bust. We can't afford it. So Trump's policy is something absolutely we should adopt. It's common sense, and I think most British people would agree.
George Keywood, what do you think? Is he being unfair?
Well, I'm British and I completely disagree. It's absolute nonsense, isn't it? Let's be honest. I mean, Jesus Christ. Are we getting to the point where we're saying that fat people can't go in a country? I mean, it's just absolutely ludicrous. And it's something that I expect for somebody like that to say.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 24 minutes past 12. Now some breaking news from the past hour. A second small boat migrant has returned from the UK to France in a so-called boomerang-style shambles.
OK, so our Home and Security editor, Mark White, is here with all the gory details. Mark, another one.
Well, yes, the first one, of course, it was an Iranian national who came back across the Channel a few weeks after he was returned to France, has now been returned to France. We don't think he's come back, but you never know. You never know. I'm sure we'll find out at some point. But no sooner had this Iranian migrant gone back to France than a couple of days later, another migrant. We've not really been given the key details with regard to this one. The Home Office have been rather reluctant to share those pieces of key information. But this migrant, it is a he, came back across the English Channel. And just today, the government now confirming that he has also been returned back to France some 20 days after he came back across the English Channel. They've also confirmed that so far, under the French returns deal, a total of 153 migrants have been returned to France, and just under 140 have come over from France as part of that deal, along with the 13,000 now who've come across the Channel as well, in that time in small boats, as part of the regular trade. I say regular trade, we haven't had any for quite some time because of bad weather conditions. Nothing, it would appear, to do with government policy, but Mother Nature doing her worst out in the Channel.
Mark, the other story today is the net migration figures are out. Good news, bad news?
Well, it's good news in that net migration is down, but if we're honest, it's down because of policies that were enacted by the previous Conservative government on making it much harder for those on student visas from overseas to bring their family members across, limitations as well to the care visa system, which was being exploited by many who were coming over, suggesting that they were coming for a work in the care sector and went off to work in completely different sectors, and also restricting the number of family members they could take over, increasing the salary thresholds. All that brought this very significant reduction in migration levels. The net migration figures have come down as a result of that. This government is building, it says, on some of the reforms that were brought in by the previous government. So it's hopeful that that figure will continue to come down a bit further. But it gets to a point, clearly, where the government's got to decide what kind of migration figure it wants in terms of being able to fulfil the needs of industry within the economy, but also the demands of many in the country who want to see migration down to what David Cameron promised and never delivered, which was to the tens of thousands.
Let's bring into this conversation now the former Immigration Minister, Kevin Foster, because, Kevin, I mean, how much of this is actually due to the last government's changes, and those changes clearly did have a massive impact on bringing down migration, delayed, but surely there's someone else to thank here as well today, and that's Rachel Reeves, because part of this net migration figure, it's not so much that we've reduced hugely the number coming in. That's still 900,000. It's that 693,000 people have left the country.
Yes, there are people leaving. Now, I'd say in some of that number were people like students coming to the end of degree courses that you'd expect to leave. But it is up 43,000. If you remember the other week, we had the revision down of net migration from the end of last year. And that was because they'd originally thought something like 17,000 British nationals left. It was actually 114,000. So, yeah, there is some evidence that we are seeing that British nationals are getting up and leaving. Some of those will be some of the high tax payers that are now going to be clobbered again after yesterday, because, you know, places like Dubai have very different tax arrangements and an increasingly mobile global economy. I'm in the studio today. I could easily be talking down the line from home. That's making it much easier for people to just shift overseas if they wish to and take their tax revenues with them.
And what do you make of the in-out situation, the fact that we've got the second Okie-Kokie migrant, and also we are learning today that more than 50,000 migrants are currently missing, free to roam the streets of the UK. No one knows where they are, what they're doing, or who they are, probably.
Well, today's migration figures are a tale of almost two halves. You've got legal migration with visas coming down quite strongly, mostly due to changes done at the back end of the last government, but also this current government is also putting in some further restrictions on that. But then you've got about 51,000 illegal entries detected, another record for asylum claims, 110,000 in a year, and we got the boomerang deal where people seem to keep on coming back from France. Because the problem with that deal is, and it's not going to make it worse, but it's not going to be a deterrent in the fact that there isn't then that follow-on. When someone goes back to France, what happens next? Because if they refuse to claim asylum in France, really what should happen is France then removes them to their home country. But if they don't, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out what they'll just, follow that path they followed previously, get to the coast, and then come back over.
And I suppose this is your argument that sending someone to Rwanda, it's rather harder to then skip, hop and jump back to the United Kingdom, whereas France, it's exactly what they've done before.
Yeah, it was one of the things we looked at when we were starting to look at third country agreements and deals. We actually even considered whether Albania would be too close, because on the basis that, of course, if you've already crossed the Mediterranean and the Sahara, then working your way back through Europe to the Channel wouldn't be an insurmountable challenge, whereas being sent to Rwanda, it was very unlikely you'd be able to travel back. Plus, of course, Rwanda would take the responsibility for any protection needs you had, and that would make it easier to just return you straight back there if you did attempt to again.
The other story on migration today is the OBR. I mean, we can't get away from them at the moment, can we? They've also called into question Labour's pledge to stop using asylum hotels, which Labour have said they're determined to do by the end of 2029 and reduce asylum spending. The OBR is saying that's just not going to happen.
Well, the numbers are up, and actually up quite significantly. I think we go back to June, the numbers were quite similar to what they'd been when Labour came into office. They're now up significantly, partly because of the surge of arrivals we've had over the summer.
5 billion to around 15 billion. I mean, this is a trebling of the 10-year spend that the OBR is now expecting.
Yeah, it is, and that's partly because, we're probably on the cusp of 40,000 arrivals this year. And the only thing that stopped going through 40,000 is, as Mark just touched on, the weather in the Channel. The stormy weather means you don't get arrivals. The moment that weather breaks, we can probably expect a busy day, probably over 1,000 arriving. So
is there
that's why the costs are pushing up
here, though, which no politician wants to make? It's not a popular one to make. But could it be that the OBR is assessing that hotels are cheaper to keep asylum seekers in than HMOs or the other sort of accommodation that the government is looking at? For example, this spending increase could be the same number of migrants, but being moved out of hotels that the government procures relatively cheaply, expensively for the taxpayer, but cheaply compared to the other options, and putting them into those comparatively more expensive options?
Possibly, and certainly we're seeing the government now starting to come forward with some of the large accommodation centre plans. Of course, they dropped when they came in. Now, suddenly they've decided, actually, they sound a good idea, despite what they said previously. So some of that will be, and also, of course, you're seeing pushing prices of rents going up. Your views, we're ready to talk with them about housing and the impact that's having. Well, of course, those costs and those pressures, the Home Office have exactly the same challenge when it tries to house people it's required to accommodate. But it's also all points to why you saw that big change in rhetoric from Shabana Mahmood recently. Labour is looking at, they could say legal migration's going relatively well, the salience of the issue is coming down in the public mind because the numbers are coming down in terms of net migration, but then really starting to focus on the issues in illegal migration, the cost, the unfairness and the impact on communities. And that if they want to try and get the next election onto the economy, onto public services, they've got to solve the issues in the Channel, and that is not going to be solved by just good wishes or a natty new slogan. They're going to have to look at the comprehensive style approach people like Donald Trump and Australia have taken.
Indeed. Thank you very much there. Kevin, thank you very much for joining us on that one.
And indeed, Mark before as well.
Who? Sorry? Oh, Mark.
Yeah, he's
Mark.
still there.
Oh, God, he's still there. Trying to get...
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and there's plenty more still to come on today's programme. But first, let's get an update on those latest news headlines with Tatiana.
Good afternoon. The top story is a small boat migrant who was removed from the UK on the 16th of October and returned to the UK via small boat on the 8th of November has been returned to France. This individual's return has not been counted twice. In total, 153 migrants have been removed from the UK under the UK-France treaty. Net migration to the UK fell to 204,000 in the year to June, new figures show. That's a drop from 649,000 in the year to June 2024, a fall of around 2/3. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood says we are going further because the pace and scale of migration has placed immense pressure on local communities. Rachel Reeves will face further questions after delivering a budget that raised a tax by £26 billion but was overshadowed by an unprecedented leak. The Chancellor acknowledges she is asking ordinary people to pay a little bit more. And France is planning to restore its national military service in the face of the growing threat posed by Russia and the risk of a new conflict breaking out in Europe. Those are the latest headlines. More in half an hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Thank you, Tatiana. Now, there's lots more still to come.
Yeah, have you got budget blues? Well, you won't be the only one. We'll have more with how you will impact you after the break. And we'll be hearing from our political correspondent who has just been in a briefing with the Prime Minister's spokesman.
Well, all of that and indeed much more to come, including should we return to conscription? You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, this is your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's fair to say it's quite a bit milder than it was this time yesterday for many of us, and the milder theme's going to continue through today, but with that it's also going to be quite cloudy and a bit wet at times. We have some rain across northern and western areas at the moment, and a lot of that is going to filter a bit further east and southeast as we go through the day, but it's going to take quite a while to move through, so actually some parts of the southeast staying largely dry at least through daylight hours. That is. Now, as I mentioned, it's mild, markedly milder than it was this time yesterday, and temperatures rising through the day. We're looking at highs around 13, 14 Celsius, so a fair few degrees above average for the time of year. But we do need to watch out for some strong blustery winds. Breezy for all of us, but the strongest winds will be across northern and western parts of Scotland as we go through this evening, and overnight gusts of 60 to 70, perhaps 75 miles per hour here. Also, plenty of showers across northern and western Scotland. Some of them could be quite heavy. A few showers across parts of Northern Ireland through this evening. Some clearer weather across much of northern England and Wales, but across central, southern, eastern England, it's a cloudy, damp end to the day, but eventually that rain is going to clear away towards the southeast around midnight time. I'm expecting it to clear away entirely. Otherwise then, clearer skies following in behind for most, but still plenty of showers towards the north and west. Still those strong winds to watch out for as well towards northwest Scotland. Temperatures not dropping as low as they have done through some recent nights. Despite the clear skies, that breeze will stop it from getting especially chilly. Then Friday actually looks like a largely fine start for many. Still breezy for sure, but a lot of sunshine to be had first thing. More showers developing as we go through the day, coming in from the west and fairly frequent across parts of Scotland. Some winteriness mixed in over the higher ground too. Watch out as those showers could merge into some longer spells of rain at times, and temperatures around average, so not quite as high as they are today.
Thank you so much for helping us to reach 8 million followers and subscribers across our social media channels. That's 8 million fearless Brits standing up for what really matters.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Expect delays on the M4 westbound between junctions 8 and 10 due to a broken down vehicle closing one lane. The M20 westbound in Kent has an incident between junctions 8 and 7 closing one lane. Normal conditions are expected later today. A speed restriction of 30 miles per hour is in effect on the A55 at Britannia Bridge. The M90 Queen's Ferry crossing has a speed limit of 50 miles per hour due to planned roadworks. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and Chiltern Railways report major disruptions between Rugby and Milton Keynes Central and West Ruislip and London Marylebone. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 39 minutes past midday. Now, do you remember back in the general election when the Prime Minister kept saying he would be a very different kind of Labour Prime Minister? He wouldn't return us to tax and spend, that there'd be no tax rises on working people.
I believed every word he said.
Yeah.
I was really reassured. Change, working people.
He's somehow changed his tune rather markedly today. Take a listen to what he said to our political editor, Christopher Hope.
Prime Minister, the overwhelming majority of GB News viewers tell us they think they're worse off from the budget. What's your message to them now they feel you've ruined their Christmas?
Well, we have asked everybody to make a contribution to the necessary decisions and the fair decisions for our country. But what I can say to your viewers is that money is going to protect our NHS, which will be a huge concern of theirs, to make sure that when they and their families need it, I hope they don't over Christmas, but when they do, that it is protected for them. It's going into our schools to make sure every child can go as far as their talent will take them on. I know for your viewers that'll be really important. But also it's going into the measures that we're taking to drive down the cost of living. We've frozen rail fares, frozen prescription charges, and now, yesterday, we announced £150 on average off all energy bills right across the country. For many of your viewers, that'll be welcome news because it's one of the bills they worry most about. If they're amongst the 6 million of the poorest families, that's on top of the 150 that we've already taken off. So they're the principles behind the decisions that we took.
But, Prime Minister, you're raising taxes and giving the money from working people to those on benefits. How can that be right?
No, it's going to our NHS, it's going to our schools, and it's going on cost of living measures. But I won't apologise for the fact we are also lifting 500,000 children out of poverty. I don't want to live in a country where children pay the price in poverty, and 3/4 of the families in which children are living in poverty are working families. They're the working poor. The other thing I'd say, because we were in a hospital yesterday, is if you go to the NHS and ask them, they will say there's a direct link between child poverty and children coming into hospital. So we take the pressure off the NHS. So I'm not going to apologise for taking children out of poverty. It's desperately needed.
Prime Minister, if I can draw you on the migration figures out this morning, the figures show that numbers in asylum hotels up 13%. When are you going to get a grip on the soaring costs of illegal migration? And while I've got you, on net migration, the figure's down to 204,000 for the 12 months to June 2025. But the OBR tell us that figure will go up again to 340,000 by the end of the decade. Why can't you control legal net migration?
Well, just let me tell net migration first, because under the last government we saw the Boris wave. He promised that immigration would come down, and it quadrupled to nearly 1 million. That was unprecedented. From that very high figure, it's now down to 200,000 or so, and that is a step in the right direction. Huge measures that we've taken to that end. On the question of asylum hotels, I want to close those hotels as quickly as possible. The last government didn't process tens of thousands of claims. They therefore put people into hotels, 400 hotels at the height under the last government, now down to about 200. But your challenge to me is the right one, which is that we need to get that number down. I'm determined to close all of our asylum hotels.
Minister Sir Keir Starmer, thank you for joining us today in a busy community centre here in Rugby. Thank you.
It's very hot in the studio today, by the way. But I don't think it's just the fact that the air conditioning isn't working as well as it should do.
It's the hot air.
I'm just very angry. Are you angry, or is it just me?
I think everyone has an absolute right to be angry when a politician stands there and just lies.
Just lies. I mean, they're blatant lies.
Boris Johnson has a reputation as being a politician who lies, right?
Yeah.
Boris Johnson did not lie anywhere near as often nor as brazenly, nor with the sense of sanctimoniousness with which our current Prime Minister lies. Lies every single day. His entire political career was built on lies. The lie about the second referendum that he said he wasn't preparing but was actually secretly working for. The lie he told to the Labour electorate that he was a massive left-winger and then switched to being a moderate as soon as he got in. And then the lie he told to the general election that he was some massive moderate and then switched to becoming a left-winger as soon as he's in power. I mean, this is lie after lie after lie.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just Keir Starmer. There is a lot of that going on in all political parties at the moment. But that was, I mean, the morning after, the night before, that was a blatant lie. Your taxes are going up because we're putting more into the NHS. Might be putting more into the NHS, but your taxes are going up because you're putting more into that benefits bill. And that is an actual fact. And Harry could stand there and say, no, 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 we need all this tax to pay into the NHS, when actually most of your taxes will be going for the benefits bill.
Well, should we speak to
you know what, you're better off sitting at home having loads of babies. Might be a bit late for me, but hey, you know, not going to work.
I mean,
Sorry.
just quit your job. All the money's going to be taken from the diminishing number of productive people and given to the expanding number of unproductive people.
Right, I'm off. I'm going to go and sit at home.
Well, let's speak to our political correspondent now, Catherine Forster. Catherine, you've been in a briefing with the government. How are they defending what happened yesterday?
Well, with lots of unanswered questions, I would say. One of the main ones was being... after last year's budget, the Chancellor said, I will not have to do a budget like this again. That's a one-off. And then, lo and behold, yesterday, cued £26 billion of tax rises. Now, the Chancellor has been asked over and over again this morning if she'll make that commitment again, and she very obviously won't. So we did ask them why that is, and the argument is now that they are not going to write a future budget ahead of time, which I would suggest is clear that they have been burnt by making those pledges last year and then having to go back on them. But it wasn't just the pledge after the last budget, was it? It was the pledges in the election campaign where they said that there would be no tax rises beyond the very limited ones that they were suggesting on non-DOMs, VAT on private school fees and so on. About $8.5 billion it was, and then she came in, put them up by 40 billion, blamed the Tories for a £22 billion black hole, and now here we go again. Also, we asked about the lack of growth because, let's face it, the OBR said that there wasn't really anything that would shift the dial. The growth projections are pretty anemic at about 1.5% for the rest of the Parliament. They wanted to stress the fact that this government has made long-term decisions, capital investment, big infrastructure projects, things like third runway at Heathrow and so on and so forth. Those were things that I think were mostly announced last year, talking about JP Morgan, big investment today, a vote of confidence, but also a suggestion perhaps that they did go a little bit easy on the banks in the end. On the OBR, they're not going to get ahead of the investigation, but they have said it is possible that it is not accidental. Quite a fun discussion on pay per mile, because we asked, well, what if you have a hybrid car? How on earth will you know what's been driven on electricity, what's been driven on petrol? I think a lot of things still to be thought out. And also, just finally, on migration, the number of asylum seekers is up. Do you know, I can't see the rest of my notes on my phone. It's not cooperating now. Oh, do you know, my glamorous assistant has just crawled across the floor to pass me. Thank you,
magic of television.
Rebecca. Here we are. Migration. They said about the small boats, you know, we know that 97% of them have got to stay at the moment, only 3% sent back. They said you will waste your time, you will waste your money is the message to those thinking about crossing the channel. I think at the moment the maths is still in their favour, I would say, but hey, they claim that these announcements Shabana Mahmood has made will bear fruit in time.
Well, Catherine Forster, thanks very much for that.
OK, we'll be going back to Catherine later in the show, but now let's cross over to Business and Trade Secretary Peter Kyle. Peter, good to see you. How was it for you? Yeah. Do you think yesterday went well?
It's good to see you too. I don't have a glamorous assistant on their hands and knees handing me notes, unfortunately. But yeah, the budget went well. It was a good budget because we got a grip of the things that I think many GB News viewers will be concerned about in their daily lives. We have held down prescription charges. We have held down the cost of rail travel. You know, we are lowering the energy costs by £150, all as a result of the decisions taken in the budget yesterday. And then also we've invested heavily in those things that create wealth for our country. I'm the business secretary. We have now made it easier. In fact, we are now the easiest place in the whole of Europe to set up a business. It is the most rewarding place in the whole of Europe to set up a business. And then also we've got a huge package now to support businesses when they scale up, because scaling up a business in this country is where most of the jobs are created, and it is where most of the wealth is created. And we need to double down on these things to break out of the vice-like grip that our economy was in when it was handed over to us at the election of high tax and low growth.
Yeah, well, you talk about high tax. Taxes are now even higher, of course. But, of course, you are the business secretary. You're talking a lot about the dynamism of British businesses. Wasn't it strange, in your view, that the OBR yesterday, even though they promised to, did not assess what your employment rights bill will do to this economy? Lots of economists say this will make the vitality of our businesses in this country worse. Why did the OBR simply ignore it? They scored other policies.
Well, the Employment Rights Bill, of course, is going to be a huge opportunity for us to modernise the British workplace, to make it more productive going forward, to give more opportunities for businesses and those people who work in businesses and unions to come together to create
Sorry,
a more
Peter, I'm just going to
productive,
stop you there because you're talking a lot
forward-facing,
of politicians speak. Let me just read to you what the OBR said in March. They said that this bill will likely have a material and probably net negative economic impacts on employment, prices and productivity. That's what the OBR said. Why are you saying precisely the opposite?
Well, because the impact that it will have will put more money into workers and people's employees' pockets. But let me just say why
no economist agrees with you.
Because when the bill goes through Parliament, because the bill is currently still going through Parliament, so the OBR does not get involved in bills which are not part of the legislative landscape.
That's not true. That's not true, because the OBR has before scored planning reform, for example, that is not yet complete, but that is written out there and is likely to be passed. So you're treating different pieces of legislation with different attitudes.
Well, let me just point out the obvious here. The OBR is a fully independent institution. I don't speak for it, I don't control it, I have no impact over it. So the questions you're asking me are questions you need to put to them. But the regulatory reform and the planning reform, we jumped straight into without the need for legislation for a great number of them. So, for example, we upgraded data centres and lab space and other high-growth sectors to that of the critical national infrastructure, which meant that we as Secretaries of State have more power to intervene and get these things into our economy quickly. They scored that because we can do things that don't need legislation, even though at the same time we have legislation going through. Now, when the Employment Rights Bill goes through Parliament, we then move to a period of consultation, because there will be 27 consultations about how the bill is implemented in practice.
So they can only assess it once it's law. I mean,
for businesses and those people who work in them to come together.
Peter, you're talking about growth. Labour were elected promising growth for working people. The overall increase has pushed the tax burden to the highest been in modern times. The Parliament, the worst for tax rises since records began. Literally every manifesto pledge you made has been broken or tweaked. How can any of us trust a single word anyone in this Labour government says again?
Well, look at what we're doing in practice. People are
looking
facing
what
a
you're
cost
doing
of
in
living
practice.
crisis.
People are feeling worse off. Businesses are closing. People are losing their jobs.
Well, let me just deal with these sequentially. When we look at this in practice, people are facing a challenge. Now, we, as a government, came into government and we start off where the others left off. It doesn't go back to zero at that point. At the point we came in, we had zero growth in the economy, and for over a sustained period, growing half the amount that it had under the previous Labour government, and we had the highest taxes for 80 years, and there wasn't a thing in the middle, no growth. Now, you can't just turn growth on like a tap. You have to earn it and get the policies through Parliament, design the policies, you've got to get it out there into the economy. These are the things that we have been striving for. We have more investment in our economy now than we did before. 320,000 new jobs created in the economy over the last year and a half. These are the things that are positive. That's why you have JP Morgan coming out today supporting the budget. It's why you have Sainsbury's saying there are things in this budget that will benefit Sainsbury's, which is in every community up and down the country. There is optimism out there about people who want to create wealth and jobs and start businesses and to expand and to use Britain as a base. We have unleashed more than £200 billion worth of investment by people coming from other countries to our country to invest and spend their money and create business in our country. Why? They are choosing Britain from over 200 other countries. They are choosing to come here because they see something that perhaps you don't at the moment.
Well, Peter, I hope you're right. I hope you're right, but I suppose the proof will be in the pudding. Thanks so much for joining us. Here's the weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The wind's picking up today. It can be very windy across northern Scotland tonight. Those winds bringing in pretty mild air, also a lot of cloud, and for some, outbreaks of rain. Low pressure is the reason why. Sitting up to the northwest, the isobars squeezing together. This weather front bringing some pretty soggy conditions across parts of western Scotland, Northern Ireland, but there's also bands of showers crossing England and Wales. Parts of eastern England may well stay dry. It should get a bit brighter through the afternoon for parts of Northern Ireland and western Scotland, but increasingly blustery here. Everywhere the wind's steadily picking up, but as I said, bringing mild air. It's much, much milder compared to this time yesterday. Temperatures getting up to 13 or 14 Celsius. Now we'll see further outbreaks of rain coming in across England and Wales through the evening time, but it's further north where we're mostly concerned about the winds really picking up overnight across northern and westernmost parts of Scotland. Gusts of 60, maybe 70 miles an hour, perhaps even 75 miles an hour through the night in some exposed areas. Those strong winds bringing plenty of heavy showers, even the odd thunderstorm moving through. For England and Wales, we'll see these bands of showery rain working from west to east, kind of fizzling out as they do so. And clearer skies should follow for northern England, the Midlands and Wales before midnight. Plenty of showers packing in on those very gusty winds across northern Scotland. As I said, that yellow warning in place through the night and into Friday morning. Elsewhere, the clearer skies will develop. Not as cold as a couple of nights ago, but colder than the night just gone, with temperatures dropping to about 6 or 7 Celsius. As I said, that warning remains in place into Friday morning. Gusty conditions across northern and western Scotland. Further band of heavy showers coming in across England and Wales too. So some heavy rain for a time. Bit of sunshine either side of that. Still blustery, but the wind's easing down for many of us tomorrow compared to the rest of today. And still quite mild, double digits for large parts of the country.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can enjoy Christmas on us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Tell you what, we've got a story about potholes now that is just, ridiculous. Fed up residents in a quiet cul-de-sac in Banbury in Oxfordshire say they've been abandoned after being told that it could take 103 years to have their pothole-riddled road resurfaced. 103 years.
I could not believe it. Absolutely farcical. Anyway, the locals on Horsham Close say some of the potholes are like craters, adding it's yet another sign of Britain's crumbling infrastructure.
Yeah, we're going to speak now to pothole campaigner Mark Morell, often known as just Mr. Pothole. I say just Mr. Pothole. My goodness.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible. They've used the figure from the alarm survey. That's a survey, a report that shows just how bad our roads are, and used an average figure. But how naive or stupid, really, to actually put a figure in there rather than say it'll be done as and when, you know? I know the particular road, because the main road, Sussex Drive, that it comes off of, I campaigned some years ago, got it resurfaced. Last year, I actually used some AI as a free app called Stan the App and drove around the 34 miles of Banbury on the main routes and identified 1,500 severe defects on their main routes. So the side roads, a number of those cul-de-sacs are well outside their life. I mean, if you look at the average road, it lasts about 20 to 25 years. And in the same report, in 15 years' time, 52% of all the country's roads will be structurally unsound, and therefore we've got a major problem coming up. And it just reflects the attitude, really, from politicians and authorities that we have to accept to manage decline.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Oh, good afternoon, Britain. It's 1 o'clock, evidently, and it's Thursday, the 27th of November. Here's Tom Harwood and I'm Dawn Neeson.
Well, it was a high-tax, high-spend, deep red budget.
These are my choices, the right choices for a fairer, a stronger and more secure Britain.
Yes, the Chancellor raises taxes by 26 billion, taking the burden to a record high, with workers, savers, businesses, you name it, everybody taking the hit. Rachel Reeves told GB News the budget focuses on her priorities.
Cutting the cost of living, cutting NHS waiting lists and cutting debt and borrowing. And I achieved those things in my budget, my second budget as Chancellor of the Exchequer yesterday.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I've identified a way to save taxpayers huge amounts of money by sacking just one person, a woman sitting opposite.
Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch went on the attack, calling Rachel Reeves the worst ever Chancellor in a barnstorming Commons takedown.
That smorgasbord of misery we just heard from her can be summed up in one sentence. Labour are hiking taxes to pay for welfare. This is a budget for Benefit Street, Madam Deputy Speaker, paid for by working people.
Well, more than 10 years on from that infamous documentary about the residents who live here, I've been speaking to those on Benefit Street to find out what they think of Rachel Reeves splurging out on the welfare bill.
Meanwhile, here up in Stoke, we're speaking to hospitality and other businesses here in the area, joined by special guests, including Bulldog Albert here.
And the second Okie small boat migrant has been returned to France from the UK.
And we must take all necessary measures to ensure the removal of any alien from any country who does not belong here or add benefit to our country. If they can't love our country, we don't want them.
Now, overnight, President Trump issued a statement from the White House after 2 National Guardsmen were shot in Washington, D.C. With the suspected gunman identified as an Afghan migrant, the president has since called for investigations into all Afghan nationals who entered the United States under the Biden administration.
And vive la conscription. Did that one all right? France is planning... Shut up. France is planning to restore national military service in the face of the growing threat posed by Russia and the risk of a new conflict breaking out in Europe. So should the UK do the same?
And do women quietly shape men into better versions of themselves? Well, far more than we tend to admit, anyway. A moment that Prince William experienced on his Welsh visit reignited that age-old conversation. Do women quietly shape men into better versions of themselves?
I know. I think most men are already wonderful versions of themselves, and I couldn't possibly improve on any of them at all. I mean, and in my next job, I want to be a politician, because I'm obviously getting very good at lying.
I don't think it's fair to say that men and women often have complementary skill sets.
Yeah, OK, what's your skill set then, Tom?
I don't know, data?
Oh, God, yeah, no, you do get, Tom's tangents. You do Tom's tangents very well, and whiteboards, yeah.
I don't think it's being particularly old-fashioned to say that women tend to do people better than men, and men quite often prefer things to people.
Are you mansplaining?
No. I'm positing that some men might happen to be from Mars and women from Venus.
I am actually going to get really upset. I'm going to be like Rachel Reeves, because I just think that's just really mean what you've just said to me, and it's not fair, and everything I've ever done wrong is probably a man's fault.
Oh, wow, OK. Also quite good at emotional manipulation.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, no, you've got a point there. You've got a point. The reason we're talking about this is actually Prince William did say that, you know, behind every good man is a better woman, and I think there is a point now. I'm getting nagged in my ear now by a woman's failing to shut up. We'll get to
this
her
is
later
Gender
on.
Hour on GB News, and there'll be much more gender politics to come. I'm joking. We're going to be doing much more besides that. But why don't we get those very latest news headlines with Tatiana?
Good afternoon. The top story. Sir Keir Starmer says the budget asked everybody to make a contribution in order to protect public services and help people struggling with the cost of living.
That money is going to protect our NHS, which will be a huge concern of theirs, to make sure that when they and their families need it, I hope they don't over Christmas, but when they do, that it is protected for them. It's going into our schools to make sure every child can go as far as their talent will take them on. I know for your viewers that'll be really important. But also it's going into the measures that we're taking to drive down the cost of living. We've frozen rail fares, frozen prescription charges, and now, yesterday, we announced £150 on average off all energy bills right across the country. For many of your viewers, that'll be welcome news, because it's one of the bills they worry most about.
Rachel Reeves' budget put Britain on course for a record tax burden as she hiked levies by £26 billion. The Chancellor acknowledges she's asking ordinary people to pay a little bit more. Many people will pay higher rates of tax as their pay increases as the Chancellor freezes income tax thresholds until 2031. There will also be new taxes on electric cars, pension contributions and houses worth more than £2 million. The government says the increases are needed to pay for increased welfare spending, as Rachel Reeves also announced the abolition of the two-child benefit cap expected to lift 450,000 children out of poverty. She says the changes are fair and necessary and insists they don't break Labour's election pledges.
I did have to increase taxes yesterday, but I've kept them to an absolute minimum on ordinary working people, freezing those thresholds for an additional 3 years from 2028. So more money in people's pockets, whether those are working families or indeed pensioners.
However, the Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride disagrees.
What has happened in this budget is just a second instalment of the disaster that we had in the first budget in the autumn of last year. Huge tax increases on hard-working people, whilst at the same time giving in to the pressures from their own backbenchers in the Labour Party and putting up benefits. That is not the way to get growth going. And in fact, in the OBR's numbers, you can see growth being damaged throughout the period compared to the forecast in the spring, unemployment going up every single year compared to the last forecast, and real living standards actually declining compared to last spring as a consequence of the choices that the government's taken.
A small boat migrant who was removed from the UK on the 16th of October and returned to the UK via small boat on the 8th of November has been returned to France. The individual's return has not been counted twice. In total, 153 migrants have been removed from the UK under the UK-France treaty. Under the one-in, one-out scheme, an equal number of migrants will be eligible to come to the UK through a safe and legal route subject to full documentation and security and eligibility checks. Meanwhile, net migration to the UK fell to 204,000 in the year to June. That's a drop from 649,000 in the year to June of 2024, a fall of around two-thirds. The Office for National Statistics says the fall is driven by fewer non-EU nationals arriving for work and study and a gradual increase in levels of emigration. The number of asylum seekers, meanwhile, being housed temporarily in UK hotels at the end of September was 36,273, which is up 13% on the figure in June, according to Home Office data. And France is planning to restore its national military service in the face of the growing threat posed by Russia and the risk of a new conflict breaking out in Europe. President Emmanuel Macron is announcing that the country is bringing back the scheme on a voluntary basis, nearly 3 decades after scrapping conscription. He'll lay out the change in a speech during a visit to an infantry brigade stationed in the Alps today. The announcement comes more than 3.5 years into Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, with Macron and other French officials warning that Moscow risks not stopping at Ukraine's borders. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, there's more news from me in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a look at the markets. The pound buying you $1.3216 and €1.1414. The price of gold, £3,144.20 per ounce. The FTSE 100 is at 9,659 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. Unless your taxes have just gone up. Well, it's 9 minutes past 1. Rachel Reeves finally delivered her budget yesterday.
Yeah, can I just read a message out?
Yeah,
please?
of course.
Thank you very much, because lots of you are getting in touch, by the way, about our interview with Peter Kyle, who is the Business and Trade Secretary. We did that in the last hour. Where were you, by the way? It was great. Lots of you saying, James, honestly, Dawn and Tom, speaking with this politician is a waste of your breath. Just lies. What an embarrassment of a man and a government. Well done, Tom, for cutting him off. And meanwhile, our Hairlock Combs, interesting name there, right. Mr. or Ms. Combs, says utterly delusional, sounded like a cult member. Do keep them coming in. Lots of you are getting in touch about our the budget.
I genuinely feel sorry for Peter Kyle, because he's someone who's traditionally been on the sort of Blairite side of the Labour Party.
Yeah, I know.
His ideal Labour Party isn't one that over-regulates everything and whacks up taxes to then pay for more and more benefits. He's clearly someone who's historically at least been on the right of the Labour Party, and now he's part of a government where he has to defend things that I just don't think he actually believes.
I think he had his fingers crossed behind his back the whole time. Any case, do keep those messages coming in. Now, Rachel Reeves, you might have noticed, delivered her budget after months of painful, never-ending anticipation. She spoke to GB News earlier today.
I did have to increase taxes yesterday, but I've kept them to an absolute minimum on ordinary working people, freezing those thresholds for an additional 3 years from 2028. So more money in people's pockets, whether those are working families or indeed pensioners.
Well, that was the Chancellor speaking a little bit earlier. But the OBR leaking the budget, of course, basically an hour before the Chancellor actually stepped up onto her feet. That was all, of course, a disaster. Here's the moment that she saw it on her phone. Well, Kemi Badenoch described the statement as a budget for Benefit Street. That's where our national reporter Will Godley is in Birmingham.
Yeah, Tom, Dawn, good afternoon from Birmingham. This is Benefit Street, of course, got the name after that infamous Channel 4 documentary some 11 years ago now, when they followed the lives of the residents here. And the show claimed at the time of filming that 90% of those who lived on this very street here were on benefits. And in fact, the constituency here in Birmingham is one of the highest concentrations of people on benefits anywhere in the country. Nearly 2 in 5 people claim benefits here. So it's an interesting moment that this budget has been called the Benefit Street budget. Why did that happen? Well, that is because the Kemi Badenoch accuses Rachel Reeves of putting up the welfare bill, and she this cost of the welfare spending is going to go from £333 billion to £406 billion by 2030. But what's the reaction here been on Benefit Street? Well, who better to speak to than one of the show's biggest stars, White D. Earlier on, I spoke to her about what she thought about the budget being called the Benefit Street budget. A budget for Benefit Street. What do you think about that?
Budget for Benefit Street. I was on Benefit Street. I was part of that documentary. Do you know what I'm saying? And again, it's a very Tory thing to say. Do you know what I mean? And this is why I think a lot of people in this country have just got no faith in any way, shape or form with any of them. I mean, I sat there and watched it yesterday, and I might as well have been in the kids' playground at school. You know what I mean? The heckling, the I'm like, come on. Do you know what I'm saying? And this is, you know, this is a room full of people that us, the general public, have to sort of, you know, are making decisions on our life. It's an absolute embarrassment.
So as someone who used to live on Benefit Street,
yeah,
the fact that welfare is going up, you must be thrilled.
Thrilled. Do you know what I'm saying? That's such a political thing to say. No, I'm not. Well, I suppose I'm thrilled from the point of view of what I deal with on a daily basis at the community hub. People who haven't got shoes on their feet, haven't got like a coat on their back, do you know what I'm saying? But again, I'm also for, and always have been for, the hard worker that works. I was going to swear, but I won't swear. You know, that works their absolute butt off to just put basic food on their tables. It's not fair. It's a kind of like a no-win situation. But what's the in-between?
Well, Dee Kelly there speaking to me a little bit earlier on, of course, the star of Benefit Street. She's now no longer living here, but many people still are. And I've been speaking to them about their thoughts after this budget yesterday, increasing the welfare bill. And where is that increase coming from? Well, we're going to see an increase to universal credit payments, to also PIP payments and the carers allowance as well, plus also the scrapping of the two-child benefit limit. Well, one lady I was speaking to earlier who claims universal credit and also child benefits, who lives on this street, actually told me she didn't think it'd be a good idea to get rid of that cap on the child benefits. She said it would encourage more people to have children who simply can't afford it. Another man I spoke to a little bit earlier on this street told me that he actually thought that making benefits more attractive was simply not the right decision. In fact, they should be encouraging people back into work. But simply, a lot of people here had no idea that even a budget took place, despite the fact it's been called the budget for Benefit Street.
Well, Will Godley, thanks indeed for bringing us that report live from the street that will be known forever as Benefit Street.
Absolutely fascinating. Do you remember Benefit Street?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, White D, gosh. Astonishing. Blast from the past there. OK, and now joining us now is nighttime economy advisor for Greater Manchester, Sasha Lord. Sasha, good to see you. How happy has the budget made you?
Well, I'll be honest with you. So I sat back yesterday, and when I realised what had been announced for hospitality, especially on the business rates, I was bewildered. And then all of a sudden, my phone blew up when people realised, actually, she just announced a stealth tax. My emotions are now anger. And I'll give you a perfect example. So during the Labour Party manifesto, during the general election, they were engaging with hospitality, engaging with trade bodies, engaging with leaders, people like myself. And they were saying, what we're going to do is going to reform the business rates in 2026 that will really benefit those British pubs, those small family-run restaurants, those small cafes. And we're going to go after the big boys, the big warehouses like Amazon and Parcel Force. They're going to pay the fair chunk. And we thought, great. So yesterday, the Chancellor stood up in Parliament and sugarcoated the thing, make it sound really, really positive. And as I said, it's been a stealth tax. A pub in Cornwall that Visit England announced was the best pub in the UK in 2024. Their business rates have now gone from 18,500 to 73,000. And when we look at the average profit on a pint at the moment, so a pint in Greater Manchester is £6.50 on average. When you've paid your alcohol duty, your VAT, your utility, your stamp, everything, your profit's 12p. So how are you going to make that leap? It's completely and utterly unsustainable, untenable. And it was the final nail in the coffin for the fifth biggest industry in the UK.
Sasha, you put out a tweet yesterday that I think was really stark and spoke to, I think, how a lot of people feel about this government, that they say one thing, they promise one thing, and then do precisely the opposite. This is what you said. The Chancellor announced help for hospitality today in the business rates. Operators have done the numbers. It's actually a massive tax rise. That is saying one thing and doing precisely the opposite.
Tom, I was at the manifesto launch, the Labour Party manifesto launch, 13th of June last year, and the Chancellor stood there and said she was the Chancellor of Business, Chancellor of Growth. There is not one business in the UK that would support that. It's nonsense. And I'd be really interested for a journalist to dig deep. Do you remember they had a letter during the general election signed by 120 business leaders, like, we're here to support Labour. I think if you went back to those 120 business leaders, they'd now regret it. And I know quite a few on a personal level, and that's what they're saying to me. They're destroying business.
But Sasha, we had Peter Kyle on, the Business and Trade Secretary, earlier on, just like literally half an hour ago, saying what a wonderful budget it was for businesses. Everyone was so happy with it. Doesn't sound like he was talking about you.
Was his nose growing at the same time? Because he's deluded. So the last budget, we had a completely unexpected hike in national insurance. What that created was 100,000 job losses in hospitality. When you dig down into that, into the minutiae, the vast majority of those are jobs for young people. So people get a Saturday job at a pub or a restaurant to help get through college or university. They've gone. Now we've got a huge business rates increase. We've also got a minimum wage increase, which, by the way, we want to pay people as best we can. But it's unaffordable at the moment. We've got a hike of 8.5% on 18 to 20-year-olds. The business rates and the national insurance and the minimum wage hike are both going to hit in April. So the next 6 weeks, you've got fantastic trading through Christmas, New Year. You can take up to a third of your whole annual turnover. You can pay your rent, you can pay your VAT, and then January, February, March, it's quiet, as we all know. Then you get hit with the business rates increase. Then you get hit with the minimum wage increase. And I'm predicting now in Q1, we are going to see more closures in that period than ever before in hospitality. And sadly, that comes with job losses.
Well, Sasha, it's a stark picture you paint. We'll have to follow it very, very closely indeed. April is the time to look out for the actual effect of the policies that were announced yesterday.
Make a point of getting Peter Kyle on and maybe get Sasha on. You can talk to one another about where we actually are.
I'd be delighted to do that.
Yeah, well, Sasha, thanks indeed for joining us. Nighttime economy advisor for Greater Manchester, Sasha Lord. Really interesting to hear just how businesses are actually hurting right now. And it's everyone thinks, oh, you can just tax they're businesses, they've got loads of money. It's the businesses that employ the people, and actually more people are employed in small and medium-sized businesses in this country than the big businesses.
And it's interesting the one that Peter Kyle mentioned were the huge businesses, the multinational businesses that are happy with the way things are going. And he mentioned two, to be fair, as well. OK, let us know what you think. gbnews.com/your say.
Absolutely, and indeed friends of GB News can vote in today's You Decide poll by scanning the QR code that's just over there on the screen right now. Was the Chancellor right to scrap the two-child benefit cap? This is one of those costly benefit measures that we're all paying higher tax for now. The results so far aren't pretty for the Chancellor. Just 2% say yes, 98% say no.
Yes, so keep voting on that one and see if we can move that dial. As I scan that code on your screens now.
Which way would you vote?
I'm keeping my powder dry. I'm trying to be neutral on this one, but I'm so angry. I'm really struggling today, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm sure that lots of people will be scanning that and getting their thoughts in, but we should say it's only a few weeks left until Christmas now. Yay! Time's running out for you to enjoy it all on us.
Yes, and that includes money. Money we're giving away that so far is tax-free. It's £40,000 to be precise, £1,000 spent in your favourite supermarket and a fantastically festive GB News goodie bag. And the best news is you get it all in time for the big day, so make sure you don't miss out. Here's how you win it all.
There's just 28 days until Christmas, and it's the final week to see how you can enjoy it on us. That's £30,000 in tax-free cash to make 2026 fantastic. A further £10,000 cash to spend on gifts for all the family, the tree and decorations. £1,000 in vouchers to buy a slap-up Christmas lunch at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. Plus, we're going to get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 8th of December. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. That's going to be a cracking Christmas, isn't it? A
It
cracker
is.
of a Christmas Eve.
Christmas cracker!
This
is why we... Anyway, on Saturday the 13th of December, you are invited to join the GB News family for our Carols by Candlelight concert. Yes, your chance to be with us. You can apply for tickets by scanning, yes, it's another QR code, and it's coming up on your screen any moment now. But if you can't wait for that QR code, you can go to gbnews.com/carols, or indeed you can scan this shimmering and shining, very festive black and white QR code. I suppose that's sort of the snow. It looks a bit snowy. Anyway.
Literally got no idea what you're talking about now, Tom, but the bit on that side is glittery and shiny, and the bit on that side is a black and white QR code.
Yes.
Please scan it and you can come and sing with Tom and I.
Absolutely. So it's going to be recorded on the 13th of December, and of course you're very, very invited to that. But if you can't make it, it's going to be broadcast live. No, it's going to be recorded and then broadcast. It's going to be broadcast later on Christmas Eve.
And if you think this is bad, you should hear Tom sing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, seriously, nobody needs that in their life.
Oh, I don't know. It depends how much mulled wine we've all had. Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and there's plenty more still to come.
Yeah, breaking news this morning. Net migration has fallen by nearly 80% from its peak in the wake of the pandemic. We'll be getting the reaction to that.
All of that and indeed more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sing out. Should we sing?
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 28 minutes past 1, as Tom would say.
Now, of course, the budget is affecting the whole country, and we want to get the full picture here on GB News, so why not head over to Stoke-on-Trent to find out how the budget revelations are being received by the hospitality industry and entrepreneurs.
GB News national reporter Jack Carson joins us live from a pub. Is it, Jack? Lucky you.
Well, I always get the good jobs, don't I? So here we are in the old Bulldog in Stoke, joined for our little Thirsty Thursday for GB News that we're having on, and we're joined by a few guests now to kind of dissect a little bit more of that budget with James Watson, Dave Evans, and of course Mike Newton, the owner, who we spoke to a little bit earlier this morning. I mean, James, we'll start with you. You run your own business. I mean, just what are your thoughts on the budget yesterday?
Well, it's pretty much the same as the last budget. We've got 3.8% inflation. We've got the minimum wage going up, and it's just much the same. So all we can do is, obviously, we'll have to put our prices up next year, which will cause inflation, and everybody's in the same boat.
Do you feel like the government understand that?
Not at all, because I don't actually feel they understand how wealth is generated. When we're running an 80% service economy, and less than 20%, which is construction and manufacture, when you're running a full service economy, you're only moving money about unless you're selling a service abroad. But when we manufacture 97% of our product in the UK, I believe in UK manufacturing, and I feel that's the way forward.
Councillor Dave Owens, I mean, you are the Deputy Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner here. I mean, your job's being made redundant because of this budget. What do you think to that?
Well, the move to a mayoral system is something I actually support. However, the problem that the Chancellor has got, the £100 million of savings she's quoting, isn't actually savings for policing and fire at all. 86 million of those savings are in the running of the elections, which actually sit with council. So it is bad for police and fire. It's less ownership over those public services, and it just speaks to a Chancellor that doesn't understand the core basics of the services that she's governing over.
All right, and Mike Newton, finally to you. You know, we spoke to you a little bit earlier on. You know, just as a pub owner, you know, running a hospitality business, you know, how do you feel the next 12 months are going to be for you?
Quite pessimistic. I mean, we're very fortunate that we have great staff, but I need the economy to grow, and I need the government to provide some structural support to keep costs down. And when you have things like the minimum wage going up and a massive tax burden on the kind of working people through the threshold freezes and other things that come here, a great customer base, I need them to spend, but in order for them to spend, the economy needs to grow. And Rachel Reeves totally threw us under the bus yesterday. The whole thing was a real mess, and I think that the problem now that Labour has is that people have realised that they are for Benefit Street and not for the average hard-working person in this country.
All right, Mike, Councillor Dave Evans, and of course James Watson, thank you so much for joining us all. You know, for those views, you know, here in Stoke, it's clear, you know, there's a lot of worry exactly about what this budget means for them and their businesses going forward over the next year.
Thanks very much, Jack. That's GB News national reporter there for us.
Well, shall we go somewhere else in the country now? Joining us from South Morley Market in Leeds is our very own Anna Riley. Anna, what can you tell us?
Good afternoon to you both. Well, this market has been here since 1880. It's been here for 145 years, and we've been speaking to market traders throughout the day to get their take on the budget. You join us now at the Market Cafe, and we're going to speak to the owner, Lewis Barker, who's busy behind the scenes here in the kitchen. Lewis is just dishing up some eggs there. Thank you for joining us. What do you make to the budget?
It wasn't what I expected. To be honest, there was nothing really about businesses, small businesses. I expected more on the business rates, and generally more to help small business. So that aside, we've got the households where there's a saving of £160 off your energy bill. For me, it is an amount which people will appreciate any amount, but it isn't really much as far as I'm concerned, especially if you break it down by week or the cost of people's direct debits, as somebody mentioned. That's just come off the top of my head, but yeah.
Thank you so much, Lewis. We'll let you get back to frying your eggs. Really appreciate you having us in your cafe. So that's Lewis's take there, hoping that businesses could have got more energy support, more support to keep them going. It's certainly places like Morley here that need that support to keep going.
Thank you very much. That's GB News national reporter Anna Riley in South Morley Market in Leeds with a hard-working person that needed support, and they don't seem to be getting it, do they? Any case, calm down. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. There's lots more coming up on today's show, but first it's the latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Dawn, thank you. The top stories: a small boat migrant who was removed from the UK on the 16th of October and returned to the UK via small boat on the 8th of November has been returned to France. In total, 153 migrants have been removed from the UK under the UK-France treaty. Meanwhile, net migration to the UK fell to 204,000 in the year to June this year. New figures show that's a drop from 649,000 in the year to June of 2024, a fall of around two-thirds. Rachel Reeves will face further questions after delivering a budget that raised tax by £26 billion but was overshadowed by an unprecedented leak. The Chancellor acknowledges she's asking ordinary people to pay a little bit more. And France is restoring its national military service in the face of the growing threat posed by Russia and the risk of a new conflict breaking out in Europe. Those are the headlines for now. More at the top of the hour.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Good morning, this is your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's fair to say it's quite a bit milder than it was this time yesterday for many of us, and the milder theme's going to continue through today, but with that it's also going to be quite cloudy and a bit wet at times. We have some rain across northern and western areas at the moment, and a lot of that is going to filter a bit further east and southeast as we go through the day, but it's going to take quite a while to move through, so actually some parts of the southeast staying largely dry at least through daylight hours. That is. Now, as I mentioned, it's mild, markedly milder than it was this time yesterday, and temperatures rising through the day. We're looking at highs around 13, 14 Celsius, so a fair few degrees above average for the time of year. But we do need to watch out for some strong blustery winds. Breezy for all of us, but the strongest winds will be across northern and western parts of Scotland as we go through this evening, and overnight gusts of 60 to 70, perhaps 75 miles per hour here. Also, plenty of showers across northern and western Scotland. Some of them could be quite heavy. A few showers across parts of Northern Ireland through this evening. Some clearer weather across much of northern England and Wales, but across central, southern, eastern England, it's a cloudy, damp end to the day, but eventually that rain is going to clear away towards the southeast around midnight time. I'm expecting it to clear away entirely. Otherwise then, clearer skies following in behind for most, but still plenty of showers towards the north and west. Still those strong winds to watch out for as well towards northwest Scotland. Temperatures not dropping as low as they have done through some recent nights. Despite the clear skies, that breeze will stop it from getting especially chilly. Then Friday actually looks like a largely fine start for many. Still breezy for sure, but a lot of sunshine to be had first thing. More showers developing as we go through the day, coming in from the west and fairly frequent across parts of Scotland. Some winteriness mixed in over the higher ground too. Watch out as those showers could merge into some longer spells of rain at times, and temperatures around average, so not quite as high as they are today.
Thank you, Britain, for making us the fastest growing news website in the UK. We're truly humbled, and we couldn't have done it without you.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the M90, the Queen's Ferry crossing has a temporary speed limit of 50 miles per hour due to planned roadworks. The A55's Britannia Bridge has a 30 miles per hour speed limit until further notice. In Sunderland, a broken-down vehicle on the A19 northbound has closed one lane. Expect disruptions on the M25 clockwise at junction 28 due to a similar incident. The A30 westbound in Cornwall faces lane closures due to a breakdown. And on the trains, there is major disruption between Rugby and Milton Keynes Central. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 38 minutes past 1. Now, net migration to the UK fell to 204,000 in the year to June, new figures show.
Well, overall, the figures show that 70,000 more EU nationals left than arrived, continuing a downward trend since the referendum, whilst 109,000 British nationals also left.
Are Labour turning the tide when it comes to migration, though?
And is it a good thing if it's just because Brits are leaving here? Well...
Possibly more today than there have been recently. Wouldn't be surprised. Joining us now is international security and border control expert Henry Bolton. Henry, good to see you. What do you make of these figures?
Well, you've just hit on one of the points. One of the reasons that I don't know why you've got me. You two have got it sussed. No, the 100. It's significant. 109,000 Brits have decided to leave the United Kingdom. So there's another thing playing out here, and that is we've just had the budget. It's the Chancellor's economic policy is driving people away. But that's a slightly different topic, and nonetheless sort of connects. You just mentioned, or you just asked whether the Labour government is actually pushing immigration down. The answer is no. This is mainly as a result of the policies enacted by the previous government, the Conservative government, who restricted the amount of visas that they gave out and sort of applied constraints to the people who could apply for visas, particularly for work and study. And that has been the main driver here. And that is why we've seen the biggest fall in immigration coming from non-EU people. So, you know, there are a lot of people who are coming over from various parts of the world to work as care workers, for example, who were previously allowed to bring dependents with them and are no longer able to do this. So the same with students. So we've seen a massive reduction there. Now, the Labour government has not brought in any significant new policies of that sort. So I suspect we're going to see probably the figures will drop again a little bit more over the next 12 months, but not a lot. I think we'll see it stabilise at this point unless the government brings in new policies.
I mean, it is extraordinary that the government is almost doing a sort of victory lap on these numbers. When as you say, these were... when James Cleverly was the Home Secretary, when Robert Jenrick was the Immigration Minister, I remember the rows over should we limit visas for dependents, should we limit social care visas and all the rest of it. And there was this 5-point plan that they put forward that all the modelling suggested would massively reduce migration. But of course, when you make a change, the migration doesn't change immediately. It takes a year or two to feed through into the system, and I suppose that's what we're seeing now.
And if I remember rightly, Henry, Labour implied that you know, James Cleverly's plans were a little bit racist.
Yeah, and draconian and inhumane. All of these words were bandied about. But as you quite rightly point out, the Labour government is sort of, you know, saying, look, aren't we clever? We're making a difference. Well, no, you've made very little difference, in fact. And in fact, in the area of asylum claims, the numbers have gone up dramatically. The number of people in hotels has gone up dramatically. We're only returning about just under 3% of the people who come across on small boats. So this government has actually done pretty much the square root of nothing in terms of impact on whatever form of immigration or migration that you want to look at. It's not come from this government.
Henry, let's be fair to this government, because of course, had 109,000 Brits not left, net migration would be 300,000. So we can thank Rachel Reeves at the very least for cutting a third off what migration might have been had we had a more competent economic chancellor.
Well, there is that, I suppose, until you sort of factor in the number of people who, out of those that 109,000 who are taking a great deal of money with them, and also what's it say for the state of the morale of the nation that those who can are going elsewhere. You know, I think the role of government is always obviously to protect and safeguard, in a security sense, the British people, but it's also I would suggest to maintain a certain amount of satisfaction, contentment, and I would say it's not often used in political terms, but happiness. If the people of the United Kingdom are happy and content, then you're on a winner. If 109,000 Brits are leaving in a 12-month period, they're not particularly happy and content, I would say.
No, and
so failing there. So you've got to write a point on statistics, but in terms of the what else it says, I don't think it's a particularly good message. No.
The problem, Henry, is the Brits that are leaving are the wealth generators. They're the ones that are wealthy enough to be able to leave. You can't say the same about the people currently coming here.
No, you can't, not at all. You know, although that said, to be fair, Dawn, there's obviously a proportion of the people who do come here, do contribute, do work, are qualified to do so, want to do so, and we're the better for it. But I would still argue that when you've got, 110,000 asylum claimants here in the United Kingdom, virtually all of whom have either travelled here across entirely safe countries that don't want them, or they've come here on other work visas, then I think you've got another problem there. And those asylum claimants, I think the argument has been very well made now numerous times that they are actually a net drain on society and the economy, not just in pure financial terms, but in terms of housing stock, accommodation, you know, the pressure on public services and utilities and so on. So, you know, we've still got a problem there. Absolutely, we have. So, although the numbers have dropped, those that are still coming are, I would say, Dawn, the ones that are the biggest drain on society.
Yes, Henry, thank you very much. I would love to say you've cheered us up, but you haven't. Henry Bolton, thank you very much. Thanks very much for joining us. And, of course, let us know what lots of you are getting in touch about this subject, gbnews.com/your say.
Well, this is allegedly Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more still to come, but if you're in search of migrating away, perhaps not for a full 12-month period, please don't leave the country. But if you'd like to leave temporarily, here's the weather in Europe.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
There's some further heavy, thundery rain affecting parts of Eastern Europe as we go through the next few days, particularly Greece and Albania. But starting off further west, yes, some rain pushing into the far northwest of Spain, but actually ahead of that, tomorrow looks largely fine and dry. A few bits of rain across the southern parts of Italy, but as I mentioned, it's further east, Greece, Turkey, Albania, where we're going to see heavy rain building up. Some places could see 250 millimetres through this week, enough to cause some disruption.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Well, lots more still to come on today's programme, including shocking news from the United States.
Yeah, overnight President Trump issues a statement from the White House as 2 National Guardsmen were shot in Washington, D.C. The suspected gunman is an Afghan migrant.
Well, all of that and more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Very good morning to you, Christine.
Good morning to the pair of you and all the watchers and listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look back...
Oh, you still got your hat.
Well done.
Oh, good on you.
I think it's shrunk a bit, but still.
I can't believe it's 23 years ago. Can you?
Well, if you can't, no, nor can I. And people come up to me and say whatever they say, and I usually say, do you realise how long ago that was? Oh, 10 years. What? I said, no, it was 2002. It turned people's view of me completely on its head. And I'd gone into the jungle as one of the most hated women in the country, or disliked, whatever you want to say. And people suddenly saw the real me, and, you know, basically I'm quite nice, I'm fun, I'm kind to animals, you know, and when people get to know the real me, they think, oh, gosh, she's not this awful old witch that the newspapers had told us she was.
Oh, you're always a battle axe, Christine. You'll always be a battle axe. Come on.
You just have to be yourself. And if yourself, your real self, can't cope with the privations and the boredom, because they deliberately make sure that you're bored most of the time. Don't forget, viewers see a fraction of it. And they also make sure that there's a mix of personalities, so that usually there's there's that sort of stuff going on. But, you know, I have to say, a tad envious. First of all, they're in the Australian sunshine, which would be nice. And I mean, what's not to like about it? You get flown out first class. We went Qantas. I have no idea what. I hope they fly the flag. I had a wonderful time. They flew my other half out, because I said, if I'm going to be away for 3 weeks or so, you will have to fly Neil out as well, because otherwise I shall have to put him into care. And so they swallowed that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's coming up to 10 minutes to 2. Now, 2 National Guard troops were critically wounded last night in what President Trump called a monstrous-style ambush attack in Washington, D.C.
The suspect, identified as an Afghan migrant, was also shot and taken to hospital.
Well, in response, Donald Trump has demanded investigations into every Afghan national who entered the United States under the Biden administration. He's also suspended all immigration requests from Afghan nationals currently.
OK, we're joined now by former FBI Special Agent James Hamilton. James, is there any more news on this story?
Hey, good morning. Following it pretty closely, the weapon appears to be a revolver. We don't know where it came from. They'll be looking into that today. And then how did he come from Washington State to Washington, D.C., which is about 2,500 miles? When did that happen and why? So those are kind of the things that they're looking at this morning. And they're obviously the criticality of the National Guardsmen. They're still in a critical condition.
Now, James, just for context, for people who might not know, that the National Guard haven't always been patrolling the streets of Washington, D.C. This was a decision made by Donald Trump in recent months to increase the security of the US Capitol. This could be seen as a political act, given that it was a political decision of Donald Trump to put these troops on the streets of your capital city. What do we know about any intention behind this?
Yeah, certainly they're looking at that. If you've been to D.C. lately, which I have, it's not just National Guard troops patrolling in, 3 or 4, it's not just single guardsmen, but you also see federal law enforcement, FBI, DEA, ATF, Secret Service, all walking the streets, almost like a foot patrol, if you will, in the UK. So it's definitely different. And yeah, it's a political decision. And they'll be looking at all of this and what motivated him to do this act and to do it now.
And the alleged shooter, is identified as a 29-year-old. His visa had evidently run out in September. This is according to Fox News reports. So it seems that he was there illegally, which is obviously the big clampdown that Donald Trump's having at the moment on migration.
Yeah, I'm not certain on that one. I read that he had filed for asylum and it had been granted, so they'll be looking into that as well. But that program, you're talking about 190,000 people between OAW and Operation, Alliance Welcome and, another program that they call it Enduring Welcome. So about 190,000. But again, I'd read that he had asked for asylum and had been approved. But they'll be looking at all of that.
Now, people will be fairly shocked because Washington, D.C. itself has fairly tight gun laws compared to many parts of the United States. But I suppose this just exposes how, I mean, if one state has tight gun laws, I mean, there's a state next door that doesn't.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, you know, we've talked about this before. This was a handgun. It could have been something, you know, a hammer. It could have been a screwdriver. It wasn't a long rifle, which is easily seen. But again, pistols and rifles can be you can get those into DC. Obviously, he did it. Where he got the weapon, we don't know. But again, this is part and parcel to living in a free society. These things happen. Obviously, it's tragic, but this is part of it.
Now, there is a lot of controversy about the National Guardsmen being on the streets in Washington, D.C. They have got crime rate down to a 30-year low in Washington, but a lot of people aren't happy with military, basically, as they see it, being on the streets.
Yeah, you see it, and both sides, you know, are arguing both sides of the equation. People that don't like to see it and people that do like to, you know, that, as you pointed out, the safety that comes with, you know, the increased presence. But it is definitely divisive, and I read this morning they're going to get more troops on the streets. So you know, it's something we're going to continue to watch.
Yeah. And James, what has the political reaction been in general? We know what Trump has said about, right, OK, that's it, pausing any immigration applications from anyone from Afghanistan. What's the general political reaction?
Yeah, it's both sides of the aisle, as you could well imagine. But certainly this program, if you remember what happened, you know, these were folks that ostensibly, you know, and this individual also were helping the U.S. And so they created a program to help them come to the U.S. Thanking them basically for their assistance during the war. And now, you know, we're looking at it as some, you know, thing that was wrong. And so,
Well,
you know,
James Hamilton, thanks indeed for talking us through this extraordinary case in the United States. Former FBI Special Agent, thanks for your time. Well, lots more to come on the show. Here's your weather.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Afternoon, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Through tonight, the winds will continue to strengthen, especially in the north and west of Scotland, where we have Met Office yellow warning in place. There's brisk winds throwing plenty of showers across the UK. Thanks to this deep area of low pressure, these weather fronts swinging across England and Wales during this evening. They'll bring some showery rain for a time, working from west to east. Clearer skies following before midnight across northern England and Wales, and that rain clearing away from the southeast soon after midnight. So many places becoming drier and clearer, but lots of showers packing into Scotland and Northern Ireland, and those winds particularly strong in that northwestern corner. That brisk wind will help to stop temperatures dropping too far. Won't be as mild as last night. Lows about 6 and 7 to start Friday. But we do start still with some strong and gusty winds over northern and western Scotland. Gusts of wind through the night and into Friday morning. 60, maybe 70 miles an hour, perhaps even 75 miles an hour in exposed areas. That kind of wind gust likely to cause some travel disruption, potentially even some power interruptions also. Breezy elsewhere for Northern Ireland, Northern England and Wales, quite strong winds and some wet weather in here as well. But for a good part of the Midlands and Eastern England, it'll be a dry, fine start to Friday with quite a bit of sunshine. The breeze will pick up a little bit, and this zone of wetter weather will only slowly creep towards the Midlands and South Wales, so we'll see some heavy bursts of rain here. Either side of that, something a bit brighter, plenty of showers packing in across Scotland, where the winds will only slowly ease and start to switch to a northerly, bringing a cooler feel. In fact, generally a fresher day tomorrow, but we could still, with a bit of sunshine, get into the teens in the southeast. Saturday, there is still a bit of uncertainty about the extent of this rain. Could be quite heavy coming through, so could be a bit further north, may generate a bit of snow over the hills, but some wet and windy weather likely for England and Wales, something a bit drier and brighter, but also colder for Scotland and Northern Ireland.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can enjoy Christmas on us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get us on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Thursday, the 27th of November. It's Tom Harwood and I'm Dawn Neeson.
Now, it was a high-tax, high-spend, deep red budget. The Chancellor raised taxes by £26 billion, taking the tax burden to a record high, with workers, savers and businesses taking a hit. Well, Rachel Reeves told GB News the budget focuses on her priorities.
Cutting the cost of living, cutting NHS waiting lists and cutting debt and borrowing. And I achieved those things in my budget, my second budget as Chancellor of the Exchequer yesterday.
Meanwhile, the second Okie small boat migrant has been returned to France from the UK for now.
And the government has also confirmed that 153 other migrants have been returned as part of the French deal. None of them back in the UK as yet.
Vive la conscription! Yes, France plans to restore national service amid rising threats from Russia and fears of conflict in Europe. So, should we bring it back over here too?
I can think of some people. And do women quietly shape men into better versions of themselves? Far more than we tend to admit. A moment from Prince William's Welsh visit has reignited that age-old conversation. So we are talking about the budget. Thank you for your company. Hello, I hope you're having a wonderful afternoon and you've recovered from yesterday. Some of us haven't, some of us are still a bit twitchy about the whole thing. You probably are as well.
Honestly, is it inopportune to say that the Chancellor, when she was speaking this morning, I mean, she looked like she hadn't quite recovered from the budget?
I think, and I'm not. I thought Kemi Badenoch's speech was brilliant, very hard hitting. I mean, she was fizzing, she was fearless, and she nailed some points. However, I do think there are some points I did feel. Don't all hate me at once, but I felt a little bit sorry for Rachel Reeves because she looked like a rabbit caught in the headlights, which is what she was, and I don't agree with what she's doing, by the way. But I want politicians, not even a political point here, I want politicians I can trust. I want politicians to lead the country. I want politicians to stand up and me to have respect. And I didn't get that yesterday with Rachel Reeves.
It's a bit Theresa May-like, isn't it? Where you sort of where you feel sorry for the politician, but that's not a good thing because you don't want politicians you feel sorry for. You want politicians who you can respect, and
I do want leaders, and that was what I'm not getting yesterday. It's just like it's terrifying. But do let us know what you think, won't you? And we have some fun at this hour as well, because not only am I signing Tom up for conscription just to get rid of him, to be honest with you,
if you have to sign up for it, it's not conscription.
Well, no, it's kind of a voluntary conscription.
Right.
See, the French being the French.
A voluntary conscription.
But they're French.
I mean, this is an oxymoron.
They're French.
Right.
Of course they're oxymorons. They're French. Don't be silly, of course. So it's not quite what it says on the tin, but you'd be great. I mean, because you're bright, you're intelligent, you're young. I mean, Mark White, who's sitting there very quietly, just smirking in the corner, obviously is way too old. As am I.
Tom would be wonderful.
Oh, I don't know.
We could get rid
Send
of him.
him straight to the front line, please.
Oh, this is I'll pull a Donald Trump and say I have a gammy leg or something. What did he say to get out of Vietnam service? He said he had something, didn't he? Anyway.
To be honest with you. Should we go to the news and get some headlines from someone very sensible? Here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much and good afternoon. The top stories this hour. Sir Keir Starmer says the budget asked everybody to make a contribution in order to protect public services and help people struggling with the cost of living.
That money is going to protect our NHS, which will be a huge concern of theirs, to make sure that when they and their families need it, I hope they don't over Christmas, but when they do, that it is protected for them. It's going into our schools to make sure every child can go as far as their talent will take them on. I know for your viewers that'll be really important. But also it's going into the measures that we're taking to drive down the cost of living. We've frozen rail fares, frozen prescription charges, and now, yesterday, we announced £150 on average off all energy bills right across the country. For many of your viewers, that'll be welcome news because it's one of the bills they worry most about.
Rachel Reeves's budget put Britain on course for a record tax burden as she hiked levies by £26 billion. The Chancellor acknowledges she's asking ordinary people to pay a little bit more. Many people will pay higher rates of taxes as their pay increases as the Chancellor freezes income tax thresholds until 2031. There will also be new taxes on electric cars, pension contributions and houses worth more than £2 million. The government says the increases are needed to pay for increased welfare spending, as Rachel Reeves also announced the abolition of the two-child benefit cap expected to lift 450,000 children out of poverty. She says the changes are fair and necessary and insists they don't break Labour's election pledges.
I did have to increase taxes yesterday, but I've kept them to an absolute minimum on ordinary working people, freezing those thresholds for an additional 3 years from 2028. So more money in people's pockets, whether those are working families or indeed pensioners.
However, Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride disagrees.
What has happened in this budget is just a second instalment of the disaster that we had in the first budget in the autumn of last year. Huge tax increases on hard-working people, whilst at the same time giving in to the pressures from their own backbenchers and the Labour Party and putting up benefits. That is not the way to get growth going. And in fact, in the OBR's numbers, you can see growth being damaged throughout the period compared to the forecast in the spring, unemployment going up every single year compared to the last forecast, and real living standards actually declining compared to last spring as a consequence of the choices that the government's taken.
A small boat migrant who was removed from the UK on the 16th of October and returned to the UK via small boat on the 8th of November has now been returned to France. This individual's return hasn't been counted twice. In total, 153 migrants have been removed from the UK under the UK-France treaty. Under the one-in, one-out scheme, an equal number of migrants will be eligible to come to the UK through a new safe and legal route, subject to full documentation and security and eligibility checks. Meanwhile, net migration to the UK fell to 204,000 in the year to June. That's a drop from 649,000 in the year to June of 2024, a fall of around two-thirds. The Office for National Statistics says the fall is driven by fewer non-EU nationals arriving for work and study and a gradual increase in levels of emigration. The number of asylum seekers being housed, meanwhile, temporarily in UK hotels at the end of September was 36,273, which is up 13% on the figure in June, according to Home Office data. Immigration Minister Mike Tapp says it's progress, but there's still a long way to go.
This is positive signs. We've come down from that peak of around 944,000 under the last government. That's down to 204,000 net migration. So it's about bringing back that order, that control, and ensuring that legal migration isn't an open door, which is what we saw under the last government, so that British workers aren't being undercut. But we've still got a long way to go, both on legal and illegal migration.
And France is restoring its national military service in the face of the growing threat posed by Russia and the risk of a new conflict breaking out in Europe. President Emmanuel Macron is announcing that the country is bringing back the scheme on a voluntary basis, nearly 3 decades after scrapping conscription. The announcement comes more than 3.5 years into Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, with Macron and other French officials warning that Moscow risks not stopping at Ukraine's border. And those are the latest headlines for now. More in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3237 and €1.1424. The price of gold is £3,138.72 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 9,679 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 9 minutes past 2. It's the afternoon after the afternoon before.
Whatever happened yesterday. And I just want to read this message out. Dubbing Needle, hi, Mr. or Mrs. Needle, says, sorry for Rachel Reeves, Dawn, never. I mean, yes, I'm sorry, I'm human. And she looked absolutely like she was a woman on the edge yesterday when Kemi was rightly giving her a good going over. And unlike Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer, I have to be honest, I can't lie. I do feel a little bit for her because, to me, she does look like a woman on the edge. And you can say she deserves it all you want, and yes, you're probably right. But I'm sorry. I'm just being honest.
Do you think she's convinced herself that she now believes what she says? Because for months she was saying we shouldn't do the benefits thing. We should cut the growing benefits spend. And of course, the Labour backbenchers forced her into a U-turn.
I think
and now she's pretending she agreed with the Labour backbenchers all along.
I think she's in a rock and a hard place, to be honest with you. I think she's trying to keep her job by keeping the backbenchers happy, by trying to keep the markets happy. And at the end of the day, Tom, she's got a boss.
Yeah.
And the buck should stop with him. And where is he, to be honest with you? I mean,
well, he was in rugby, talking to our political editor.
Well, yeah, and lying through his teeth.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I honestly, I'm surprised that we do not yet have the sort of general assumption that we now have a Prime Minister who is addicted to lying. Because that's what all the media said about Boris Johnson.
Yeah, I know.
And it was almost taken as a prerequisite.
I know.
And yet we have a Prime Minister who it is provable that this man has lied and lied and lied and lied. And yet we don't have that sort of general feeling.
Keep those messages coming in. And especially, as I said, I'm being honest there, OK? Now, talking of Rachel Reeves, after months of painful, never-ending anticipation, she did speak to GB News earlier.
I did have to increase taxes yesterday, but I've kept them to an absolute minimum on ordinary working people, freezing those thresholds for an additional 3 years from 2028. So more money in people's pockets, whether those are working families or indeed pensioners.
Well, let's discuss it all with the chief political commentator at the iPaper, Kitty Donaldson. Kitty, thanks for being with us this afternoon. I mean, a lot of people are saying that this was a budget for Labour backbenchers and not many other people.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. But it's also for the markets, the international money markets. She had to show them that she was serious about getting debt down, and because she was afforded this extra wriggle room, extra headroom, she can do both. But what happened when you put Labour backbenchers first and you put the bond market second, is you push voters right down to the bottom of the pile, and I think that's what happened yesterday.
I mean, Kitty, I've been working on newspapers for a very long time, and I have never witnessed such utter chaos around any budget. I mean, and there have been some stinkers in the past, it has been. Never witnessed such chaotic scenes, and especially with the leak of the whole thing before she even got up on her feet.
Yeah, in fact, I was sitting in the House of Commons press gallery watching it all go on, and there was this absolutely sort of astonishing sequence of events when the Tories sort of had noticed first, I think, and they were all sort of looking at their mobile phones. No one was really paying attention to Prime Minister's questions. And then sort of Labour, who'd put their phones away, suddenly, like, the backbenchers sort of started noticing, and then a kind of message went forward, and then to Torsten Bell, who was sitting behind Rachel Reeves, and then James Murray, who you can see next to her, and Torsten Bell handed James Murray, the junior Treasury Minister, his phone, and then that was handed to Rachel Reeves, and her face was a bit of a picture.
I mean, it is astonishing that the OBR sort of accidentally, we have to presume, leaks this whole thing. But of course it does feed into a narrative because, I mean, so much of the budget was leaked, not accidentally, presumably, but on purpose by Treasury officials, by special advisors, by people around the Chancellor for weeks, months before this budget was actually finally delivered.
Yes, I mean, and the OBR mistake is not the Treasury's fault. They sit in separate buildings. We'll get to the bottom of that. But you're absolutely right, Tom. It smacks of the kind of icing on the cake of a sort of shambles that have been going on for months. But actually, some of the briefing was deliberate because they were trying to soften up the market, soften up voters, I think. And the idea was eventually that Rachel Reeves would stand up at the budget and say, actually, having made that speech about income tax a couple of weeks ago, would be able to turn around and say, aha, this is my rabbit I'm pulling out of the hat, and I'm not going to have to do income tax rises after all. But that was leaked in its own way, and so she didn't get to do that. But you're right, I don't think this is really any way to run a budget. Hugh Dalton, we've all been talking about him a lot recently. Back in the 50s, he let something slip to the Evening Standard London newspaper, minutes before the budget. They'd managed to get it onto their front page for the afternoon edition, and he had to resign. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen these days, is it?
As I say, Kitty, I mean, the irony of this budget, by doing what she's done to keep the backbenchers on side, to save her job and her boss's job, let's not forget about him. I think the irony is that it's had the opposite effect. From witnessing the scenes yesterday, have no idea how Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer can stay in their jobs.
Yes, it's a question of timing now, I think. Rachel Reeves went to the PLP, that's the meeting of all the backbench MPs last night, and she was roundly cheered. A colleague of mine was sitting on the House of Commons terrace having a drink, and they said they could hear the cheers from out the window. So clearly there was a lot of joy expressed at what they see as a very Labour budget. But MPs have to go back to their constituencies this weekend. They have to explain to working age voters why they've made the decisions they've made and why the benefits bill is rocketing with no apparent desire to bring it down. And also, some of these tax increases are going to kick in just as we go into the next general election. I mean, Rachel Reeves is gambling that perhaps growth will have, gone gangbusters by then, to nick a phrase from George Osborne. But I mean, given the global uncertainty at the moment, I'm not sure that's entirely likely. And therefore, come 28, 29, 30, all these things are going to kick in. And I mean, if you're a Labour MP, you might feel sort of pleased today, but I don't think you're going to feel that pleased in the run-up to the next general election.
This is such an astute point, and not enough people are talking about it. the deficit actually gets bigger in the first 3 years of the forecast period. I mean, we are borrowing £5 billion more than we were expecting to next year. And it's only by the very end of the forecast period that the taxes pick up, that the deficit closes. Now, a lot of people have made this comment, but, I mean, can we really believe that this is actually going to happen? Or is this all a bit of accounting trickery? The Chancellor is borrowing money in the short term and is promising to pay for it years down the line.
Well, I mean, that is a question, of course, for the bond markets, and they seem to have reacted quite well yesterday. But whether in the sort of medium term they start taking a kind of sideways look at it and thinking, actually, can Britain honour its debt load, then borrowing costs might go up again. So you're absolutely right, Tom. It's a sort of, I think we're sort of all looking behind a cushion at the moment, you know, waiting to see what might happen.
Yeah, Kitty, thank you very much. That's Chief Political Commentator at the IR paper, Kitty Donaldson there. OK, joining us now is pensions expert Tom McPhail. Tom, all the leaks warned us that it wasn't going to be good news, certainly for pensioners. The leaks proved to be 100% accurate. What did you make of what you've heard?
Yeah, well, absolutely right. And look, we shouldn't feel sorry for Rachel Reeves, right?
I know.
She needs to own this. And listening to that clip you played just now, where she talks about putting more money in people's pockets, was the phrase she used. That's a lie. She's taking money out of people's pockets. You know, at what point does this kind of Orwellian doublespeak become unacceptable? And what they've done on the energy bills, they're saying we've brought your energy bills down by £150. She was in full robot mode on the morning round today, repeating this line. This too is untrue. They've only done it by raising taxes elsewhere. So I don't think we should feel any sympathy for her at all. She's absolutely made this predicament that we're now having to deal with. On the pension front, which is what you asked me about, they're cutting this tax exemption, this national insurance exemption on contributions made through the workplace, which is projected to raise the government £4.7 billion. So this is no small beer. This is quite a significant lump of money. Very interestingly, it will then drop significantly. It's forecast to roughly halve in the second year of its operation. I think because they're anticipating behavioural responses. But look, it's important to note this doesn't come in until 2029, which is immediate, as Kitty pointed out, is just before the next general election. So I'm not at all convinced that this measure will actually stand the test of time. Will they have the guts to carry through on it? I'm not sure.
Well, Tom McPhail, pensions expert, thanks indeed for talking us through. Lots more to discuss there. We'll have to have you back soon, but we're going to go to Washington, D.C. now, where there's a press conference on this shooting.
And that, unfortunately, is becoming a reality more and more for the members of law enforcement. Yesterday on Thanksgiving Eve at approximately 2:15, near 17th and I Streets in the northwest section of the district, near the Farragut West Metro Station, 2 uniformed guardsmen were ambushed in a brazen and targeted attack. A lone gunman opened fire without provocation, ambush style, armed with a .357 Smith & Wesson revolver. One guardsman is struck, goes down, and then the shooter leans over and strikes the guardsman again. Another guardsman is struck several times. Fellow guardsmen who were there responded immediately, engaging the suspect, neutralizing the threat, and subduing him at the scene. He was transported to a local hospital where he remains, as we speak, under heavy guard. Thanks to the swift and coordinated response of the National Guard and the Metropolitan Police Department, no additional victims were harmed, and the scene was secured within minutes. The suspect, he has been identified as Ramanullah Lakhanwal, a 29-year-old Afghan who entered the United States under Biden's Operation Allies Welcome, a program following the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. He resided in Bellingham, Washington, with his wife and, we believe, 5 children. And we're working very closely with our federal partners, especially DHS and the FBI, to review his immigration history and the vetting process itself. What we know about him is that he drove his vehicle across country from the state of Washington with the intended target of coming to our nation's capital. As we stand here today, the charges that are appropriate right now are 3 counts of assault with intent to kill while armed, a violation of D.C. Code 22-401 and D.C. Code 22-4502. He will also be charged with possession of a firearm during a crime of violence. He faces 15 years under the assault with the intent to kill. We intend to continue monitoring what the charges will be, depending upon the well-being of the guardsmen. We are praying that they survive and that the highest charge will not have to be murder in the first degree. But make no mistake, if they do not, that will certainly be the charge, murder in the first degree. The Department of Justice, under Attorney General Pam Bondi, is committed to a thorough and an impartial investigation where we will hold this perpetrator accountable under the full weight of the law. Now, Sarah and Andrew volunteered. They came here to protect the people of the district, pursuant to a crime emergency that President Trump rightly declared in this city and in other cities across the country. Our nation's capital should not and must not be a place where evil comes to commit violence, whatever their cause or motive may be. We should not have to live in fear in the nation's capital, especially by one who came here from a foreign country. And through a process that was so absurd that he came through and released into this country, as many were, knowing virtually nothing about his vetting. This is what happens in this country when people are allowed in who are not properly vetted. These guardsmen and all who are here to protect the district are the line that separates a civilized society from a barbaric one. They are the ones who stand for law and order. This was not just an attack. It was a direct challenge to law and order in our nation's capital. And the individual will be made fully accountable. And though it seems that we have been here before under President Trump, make no mistake, and the Attorney General, we will not allow this to be normalized. It will be confronted, condemned, and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Now, my message to the individual who committed these acts is you picked the wrong target, the wrong city, and the wrong country, and you will be sorry for the violence and the evil that you perpetrated in our nation's capital. And now I call upon the Director of the FBI, Kash Patel.
Thanks, Judge. I'll begin my remarks and my remarks the same way, with prayer for our fallen soldiers, prayer for our law enforcement community, prayer for our National Guardsmen and women, prayer for our brave prosecutors at the Department of Justice and the offices of the D.C. United States Attorney. We must come together as a nation, especially on this Thanksgiving Day, and remember the sacrifices that so many are making around the world and around this country to secure our freedoms under President Trump's brilliant leadership and administration. I'll provide an update on the case as follows. It is an ongoing investigation of terrorism. Make no mistake about it. The FBI is leading out on these federal assault on a federal law enforcement officer investigation on many fronts. We immediately, with our law enforcement partners in the Metropolitan Police Department and the interagency, secured the scene, seized the weapon, sent in our evidence response team immediately to collect evidence, and started doing block-by-block canvasses. We are looking for and interviewing witnesses. The firearm and other materials have been sent to our Quantico laboratory already yesterday for immediate analysis. That work is ongoing. Partnering with the D.C. United States Attorney's Office, we have also executed multiple search warrants around the country, to include the subject's last known residence, which is in the state of Washington. The search warrant was executed on that house last night. or early this morning, and it is an ongoing process. All the individuals found in the house have been interviewed, and some interviews remain ongoing. We will not stop until we interview anyone and everyone associated with the subject, the house, and every piece of his life. There's also subject interviews, relations conducted in San Diego, pursuant to our ongoing investigation. So, as the judge noted, this is a coast-to-coast investigation being led right here in Washington, D.C. And this subject definitely did pick the wrong country. And we will rise together as a nation to show the world what we do here. And we are thankful that we have the Attorney General's brave leadership and President Trump's brave leadership and priorities to safeguard our communities. I also spoke to Director of the CIA, John Ratcliffe, last night, and Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth. There is confirmation now that the subject had a relationship in Afghanistan with partner forces. We are fully investigating that aspect of his background as well, to include any known associates that are either overseas or here in the United States of America. That is what a broad-based international terrorism investigation looks like. We will provide continuous details to the American public while at the same time not jeopardizing the ongoing prosecution to ultimately hold this perpetrator accountable in our courts of law. We will provide as much transparency as possible, but as you can see, the breadth and scope of this investigation will continue. We will continue to hit the streets and hit every town and every house and talk to every witness. The men and women of the FBI and the Metropolitan Police Department and the interagency, to include the Department of Homeland Security, DEA, and ATF, are working tirelessly on this Thanksgiving Day. And I know just by talking to the leaders behind me that instead of going on and being with their families, everyone rogered up and showed up to work today. And none of them want to go home. That's the resolve that we have together as a team to bring to you justice for this heinous act of terrorism here in our nation's capital. And as the judge said, we will ensure that our law enforcement partners are out there in full force to make sure the world can enjoy our nation's capital. We will not let this heinous act of violence prevent people from visiting our beautiful nation's capital. And we will also continue to highlight any evidence that we can publicly. And as the judge said, this individual is in this country for one reason and one reason alone, because of the disastrous withdrawal from the Biden administration and the failure to vet in any way, shape, or form this individual and countless others. And this administration has taken the rightful step to stop any further allowance of people with this similar background into the country, and we're thankful for that. And as I said, this investigation remains ongoing, and I think I'll turn it over to General Blanchard of the National Guard now. Thank you.
Well, we've been listening to Washington, D.C. Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, speaking there. Mark White, our Home and Security editor, is in the studio with us here in London. Mark, what do we now know?
Well, we now have the names of those two guardsmen that were shot and critically injured. They've undergone surgery. They are still alive at this hour, but in a very, very serious condition. They are 20-year-old Sarah Beckstorm and 24-year-old Andrew Wolf. The suspect, 29-year-old Ramallah Lakanwal, an Afghan national who, according to Judge Janine Shapiro, the district attorney for the state of District of Columbia, said that he had come to the US under the previous president, Joe Biden's policies to take people from Afghanistan who had worked with either directly or indirectly with US or coalition forces in Afghanistan. You heard there the FBI director also confirming that this man had links with partner forces in Afghanistan. Quite which country he was talking about, we don't know, but he was brought to the UK. He lived in the state of Washington on the West Coast before travelling to Washington, D.C., travelled across land specifically to carry out this attack. He is married, we're told, with 5 children living in the state of Washington. In terms of the motivation, we don't have that as yet. He was, brought down, arrested disarmed by other members of the National Guard and police officers at the scene. He was injured himself. He is under police guard in hospital at this hour. I'm not sure, judging from what we've heard from law enforcement there, whether they've actually had any meaningful dialogue with this individual at this stage. But someone who is clearly, now being questioned, facing a very lengthy prison term, depending on the outcome for those two guardsmen, because at the moment they are very gravely ill. And the hope is that they will recover. If they don't, then the charges this Afghan national will be facing will be even more severe. You heard there from the director of the FBI that this was an international counter-terrorism investigation. I don't think they've said yet that they believe the motivation was terrorism. You draw your own conclusions, but clearly what they do believe is that these guardsmen were singled out by this individual. He was armed with a handgun, a revolver, a .357 Smith & Wesson, which was recovered at the scene, and he ambushed these two guardsmen just near a rail station within the US Capitol. He shot one who, according to Judge Janine Pirro, fell over, was on the ground. He leaned over that guardsman and discharged his weapon again. He then also shot the second guardsman some 4 or 5 times. So
quite appalling. And by the sound of it, it drove across coast to coast. They said coast to coast inquiry drove all the way from Washington State
specifically
to Washington,
carry
DC.
out this attack. Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely appalling. Wow.
Well, and of course, a symbolic date in terms of the eve of Thanksgiving Day as well, when America is winding down for this most important of holidays.
Well, Mark White, thank you very much for bringing us all of that. Of course, the story still develops.
Yeah, OK. Now, then we're going to go to a quick break.
Good morning, this is your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's fair to say it's quite a bit milder than it was this time yesterday for many of us, and the milder theme's going to continue through today, but with that it's also going to be quite cloudy and a bit wet at times. We have some rain across northern and western areas at the moment, and a lot of that is going to filter a bit further east and southeast as we go through the day, but it's going to take quite a while to move through, so actually some parts of the southeast staying largely dry, at least through daylight hours. That is. Now, as I mentioned, it's mild, markedly milder than it was this time yesterday, and temperatures rising through the day. We're looking at highs around 13, 14 Celsius, so a fair few degrees above average for the time of year. But we do need to watch out for some strong blustery winds. Breezy for all of us, but the strongest winds will be across northern and western parts of Scotland as we go through this evening, and overnight gusts of 60 to 70, perhaps 75 miles per hour here. Also, plenty of showers across northern and western Scotland. Some of them could be quite heavy. A few showers across parts of Northern Ireland through this evening. Some clearer weather across much of northern England and Wales, but across central, southern, eastern England, it's a cloudy, damp end to the day, but eventually that rain is going to clear away towards the southeast around midnight time. I'm expecting it to clear away entirely. Otherwise then, clearer skies following in behind for most, but still plenty of showers towards the north and west. Still those strong winds to watch out for as well towards northwest Scotland. Temperatures not dropping as low as they have done through some recent nights. Despite the clear skies, that breeze will stop it from getting especially chilly. Then Friday actually looks like a largely fine start for many. Still breezy for sure, but a lot of sunshine to be had first thing. More showers developing as we go through the day, coming in from the west and fairly frequent across parts of Scotland. Some winteriness mixed in over the higher ground too. Watch out as those showers could merge into some longer spells of rain at times, and temperatures around average, so not quite as high as they are today.
Thank you, Britain, for helping us reach 8 million followers across social media. Thank you for making us a part of your daily life.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Reports indicate ongoing disruption on the M8 westbound after Junction 3 at Bathgate due to a road traffic incident causing significant delays. In West Sussex, the A27 westbound between the junctions with the A259 Chichester West and the A259 Havant Road is experiencing 30-minute delays due to a collision, with one lane closed. Meanwhile, northbound traffic on the A40 between Gibraltar Tunnels and Monmouth-Dixton Roundabout is facing congestion caused by a broken-down vehicle. And on the trains, expect major disruptions on the Avanti West Coast between Rugby and Milton Keynes Central. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is coming up to 37 minutes past 2 o'clock. Now, we have some breaking news for you, so we're going to go straight to Mark White. Mark.
This relates to the attack on the synagogue, Heaton Park in Manchester at the beginning of October. Greater Manchester Police now confirming to us that a 31-year-old man has been arrested at Manchester Airport in connection with the terror attack at Heaton Park Hebrew Congregation Synagogue. In which, of course, we know 2 people were killed. A third person, the attacker, Jihad al-Shami, was killed by armed police at the scene. Now, this 31-year-old man was detained on suspicion of commission preparation and instigation of acts of terrorism after arriving on an inbound flight. It brings the total number of people arrested in connection with that synagogue attack to 7. We've had a statement from Assistant Chief Constable Rob Potts, who holds the operational responsibility for counter-terrorism policing in the Northwest. He said at around midday today, officers from counter-terrorism policing Northwest arrested a 31-year-old man in connection with the appalling terrorist attack that took place at the Heaton Park Hebrew Congregation Synagogue. The man was arrested at Manchester Airport after arriving on an inbound flight and has been taken into custody for questioning. The loved ones of Mr. Dolby and Mr. Kravitz, the 2 innocent victims at the synagogue attack, have been updated on this development, as of those who were seriously injured in the attack. The statement goes on to say, our investigation is continuing, and I would once again appeal for anyone with information that they think could assist our inquiries to please come forward. It gives a little bit more detail about previous arrests, but the breaking news this hour is that confirmation from Greater Manchester Police that a 31-year-old man coming into Manchester from an inbound flight, we don't have any details of where this flight was coming from, was detained on suspicion of commission preparation and instigation of acts of terrorism. He is in police custody at this hour in connection with that appalling attack on the synagogue at the beginning of October.
Yeah, indeed. We will have any more details for you. Mark will bring them to you later on during the day. But it's breaking news, and our thoughts still with those poor families who obviously will never recover from what happened on that day.
Yeah. Well, we're going to go to some international news now, because France is bringing back a form of national service.
Yeah, it's part of a wider effort to prepare for a possible threat from Russia. With war clouds gathering over Europe, many are now asking, should the UK be doing a similar thing?
Well, joining us to discuss this is the former British Army spokesperson, Mike Shearer. Mike, it's an interesting proposal from France. Not quite conscription, because it seems to be voluntary in nature, but it is about building up readiness in case of a European war.
Well, that's right. Just before I get into that, please forgive my casual attire. You've caught me just ahead of my gym session. But yes, France is now looking in the summer coming to introduce a 10-month stint for both men and women. And this is all part of a wider national resilience campaign really being set up by the Europeans. Something every country should do, by the way, for itself. It started really with Lithuania in 2014, directly after the Russians invaded the Crimea. Followed swiftly thereafter by Sweden, Latvia, and Poland. Poland, by the way, who are spending 4.7% of their GDP already. This is how seriously they take this threat on their national security. Britain, however, on the other hand, have done precious little. We now have a civil service almost 4 times the size of the armed forces. The armed forces, Army, Navy, and Air Force, sitting around about 141,000. Civil service, I think now sits at 551,000. We've got to get the balance of skills right here, because none of those departments will matter when we're all speaking Russian.
Mike, this does sound like I'm not quite sure, no one's quite sure how it's going to work, but it seems to be like on a voluntary basis. How many youngsters, thankfully I'm too old, but how many youngsters in this country do you think would volunteer for this kind of service?
That is a great question. And the answer is, I would say dwindling. I mean, who wants to join the armed forces knowing that their government is going to hound them once they've been on operations and doing the bidding for the government? We've given comfort letters to terrorists while we're pursuing our own soldiers. It's disgraceful. Now, what kind of an advert really is that? But notwithstanding, this is a very, very perilous time for Europe. Russia are not messing about. Trump is deluded if he thinks he's going to get a deal here. This is a deal maker versus a troublemaker. It's much easier to make trouble than it is to make a deal. And so Europe, I'm afraid, needs to get its act together sharpish. Otherwise, we're going to live through what was the 1938 Hitler-Chamberlain agreement, that all that Hitler wanted, he told us, was the Sudetenland.
Yeah.
Well, of course, we know how that worked out.
Absolutely. You keep feeding the crocodile and it keeps ever expanding its hunger. But Mike, I suppose one of the issues here is that Britain has always had a relatively small armed forces. We've always had a fairly elite armed forces. If we were to introduce conscription, would we not lose sort of the elite level of our armed forces? Conscripted armies are nowhere near as professional or as good as armies that are made out of volunteers.
No, but the notion is that you tee people up just in case you really do need to call upon them. So they're just looking at a 10-month stint, initially starting, I think, with 2,000 or 3,000 people starting in the summer over that year. But they're eventually looking to lift that up to 50,000. What I would say the United Kingdom need to do, because our army cannot even fill our national football stadium at Wembley, we need to reconstitute a lot of our old armoured infantry regiments. The trouble is, the government thinks the spend on defence is a liability. It's in the liability column. It's not, it's an asset. And if you say in 10 years' time, we spent all that money and we didn't even go to war, that's why you didn't go to war. The only dividend that comes out of peace is peace itself.
Mike, just very quickly and finally, we obviously have been talking about the budget a lot today, but we didn't hear anything about defence in the budget, did we? Are you disappointed by that?
Massively. And I'm afraid this is a huge failure of successive governments. It really did start in 1989-1991, the fall of the Berlin Wall and then the Soviet Union. And I'm afraid because we have transitory governments, they cannot see further than their shadow of term, which is 4 years, when in fact they should be looking at the strategic security of this nation. We always hear them say defense and security is the first call of any government, yet they never demonstrate this. They need to get serious with it. And I know that there are competing priorities, but they need to get this one right. The closest crocodile to the boat right now is the defence of Europe and the United Kingdom.
The number of young people who are out of work altogether and are being ploughed with benefits to stay at home and do nothing.
$1 million.
The billions of pounds that are being extracted from working people in this country to pay people to sit on their backsides, lie in their bed and pretend they've got a mental health problem. Well, what if we spent that on the armed forces instead and got some of those young people out of their bedrooms and into the barracks?
Mike, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. That's British Army spokesperson, or former British Army spokesman, Mike Shearer. Thank you very much. Would you sign up, Tom? You sound quite passionate.
I've got a job.
If I sack you now, would you?
If I found myself unemployed, I would absolutely sign up to the army before I'd take a penny in benefits money.
Well, good point. Lots of people would probably not think that way. OK, now, there is only a few weeks until Christmas. Yay, I know, exciting, isn't it? And time is running out for you to enjoy it all on us. That's £40,000 in tax-free cash, £1,000 to spend in your favourite supermarket, and a fantastically festive GB News goodie bag. And the best news is you get it all before the big day. Here's how you do it.
There's just 28 days until Christmas, and it's the final week to see how you can enjoy it on us. That's £30,000 in tax-free cash to make 2026 fantastic. A further £10,000 cash to spend on gifts for all the family, the tree and decorations. £1,000 in vouchers to buy a slap-up Christmas lunch at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. Plus, we're going to get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 8th of December. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Oh, good luck indeed. That'd be lovely. It's a real cracking Christmas, or cracker of a Christmas. I know I've said that joke twice now. I've said it twice now.
Oh, I was just thinking, it's going to be December soon. It's going to be getting Christmas decorations up.
Yeah.
Get my GB News baubles out.
Yeah, they're lovely baubles as well. There's some in that festive package, evidently. Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, we've got to shut up. This is Good Afternoon Britain. It is GB News, and still to come.
Yeah, still women quietly shape men into better versions of themselves, far more than we tend to admit. Well, a moment from Prince William's Welsh visit has reignited that age-old conversation.
But first, if you are a researcher, some holiday sun, possibly to get away from the old man girls. Here is a forecast for some of those top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
There's some further heavy, thundery rain affecting parts of Eastern Europe as we go through the next few days, particularly Greece and Albania. But starting off further west, yes, some rain pushing into the far northwest of Spain, but actually ahead of that, tomorrow looks largely fine and dry. A few bits of rain across the southern parts of Italy, but as I mentioned, it's further east, Greece, Turkey, Albania, where we're going to see heavy rain building up. Some places could see 250 millimetres through this week, enough to cause some disruption.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health, Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's just gone, well, 8 minutes to 3. But Prince William has unintentionally kicked off a gender debate after a cheeky joke during a visit to Wales.
That wasn't a joke. Basically, he has said, while chatting to a community leader, he praised the idea that behind every average man is a better woman. And people have their thoughts on this subject, obviously. You know, also, I think, along these lines, is David Cameron came out and was talking about his prostate cancer recently. And he said that if it hadn't been for his wife, Samantha, he wouldn't have found that out. So I think there is a very valid point here and a very sensible point. It's not just about us taking the mickey out of men.
No, men don't often talk about themselves or to other people in the same way that women do. So that is a useful correction.
Anyway, thank you very much for your company. We're back tomorrow. Yeah, but don't go any far. Martin Daubin is up after the weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Afternoon, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Through tonight, the winds will continue to strengthen, especially in the north and west of Scotland, where we have Met Office yellow warning in place. There's brisk winds throwing plenty of showers across the UK. Thanks to this deep area of low pressure, these weather fronts swinging across England and Wales during this evening. They'll bring some showery rain for a time, working from west to east. Clearer skies following before midnight across northern England and Wales, and that rain clearing away from the southeast soon after midnight. So many places becoming drier and clearer, but lots of showers packing into Scotland and Northern Ireland, and those winds particularly strong in that northwestern corner. That brisk wind will help to stop temperatures dropping too far. Won't be as mild as last night. Lows about 6 and 7 to start Friday. But we do start still with some strong and gusty winds over northern and western Scotland. Gusts of wind through the night and into Friday morning. 60, maybe 70 miles an hour, perhaps even 75 miles an hour in exposed areas. That kind of wind gust likely to cause some travel disruption, potentially even some power interruptions also. Breezy elsewhere for Northern Ireland, Northern England and Wales, quite strong winds and some wet weather in here as well. But for a good part of the Midlands and Eastern England, it'll be a dry, fine start to Friday with quite a bit of sunshine. The breeze will pick up a little bit in this zone of wetter weather. Will only slowly creep towards the Midlands and South Wales, so we'll see some heavy bursts of rain here. Either side of that, something a bit brighter. Plenty of showers packing in across Scotland, where the winds will only slowly ease and start to switch to a northerly, bringing a cooler feel. In fact, generally a fresher day tomorrow, but we could still, with a bit of sunshine, get into the teens in the southeast. Saturday, there is still a bit of uncertainty about the extent extent of this rain. Could be quite heavy coming through, so could be a bit further north, may generate a bit of snow over the hills, but some wet and windy weather likely for England and Wales, something a bit drier and brighter, but also colder for Scotland and Northern Ireland.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can enjoy Christmas on us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
So many people within the armed services now can say that they owe their lives if they were, shall we say, work in the Middle East and in Afghanistan, in Iraq before that, actually owe their lives to the fact that it was dogs that they sent out to see whether or not there were explosives in a building, whether they were going through a minefield or whatever. So I think we were just talking previously, of course, Hannibal uses elephants. And there has not been a single year since the end of the Second World War when we have not had a conflict of some sort, and animals are still being used. We don't have horses used in the same way, obviously. We still had the cavalry, which is why 8 million horses were lost. Horses, donkeys and mules were lost in the First World War. But they weren't just the cavalry horses. They were the horses that were pulling the guns, that were delivering the armaments, that were carrying out the wounded. And what is interesting is, today in the 21st century, in Ukraine, who are leading the way in using drones in modern warfare, they are doing what they did in the First World War, and they're using horses, donkeys and mules to take the wounded out. The wonderful memorial that we have on Park Lane, it's there and it recognises that it was horses, dogs, donkeys, mules, and if you look, because they have individual statues of them, but if you actually look at the memorial itself, you will see pigeons. Dolphins. I mean, we know that dolphins are being used. As human beings, we share this planet with millions of other animals. And for centuries, we have used certain animals and abused them, used them and abused them, and got them into service with us.
GB News, the People's Channel.
A really important thing about GB News, and it's brought something